cut, every thought, every action is critical. Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone so you can go fast? Or for many to go together so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At R&B, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. R&B, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
5-time champions Bafana Bafana and 3-time champs the Zebras are both searching for the essential 3 points in their second Group A contest. This is the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2024. Experience the beauty of the Southern African Derby. South Africa versus Botswana on Saturday 29 June at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
And it certainly is the National Pulse. And welcome to the show. Welcome to you, wherever you may be, in the country, on the continent, around the world, and whichever way you're connected. It's just great that you're a part of the show. My name is Ashraf Garda. 3 hours of doing things and talking about things that totally reflects the National Pulse. And as always, let me put this question to you. What for you moves the National Pulse today? Well, I can tell you up front, in my opinion, even just for the day, the Proteas winning their World Cup semi-final, T20 semi-final, has just for the day knocked the GNU conversations as well as the conversations around what's happened to the cabinet announcement just off the front page, so to speak, and ensured that that is center stage. But you have your own opinions about what is it that moves the National Pulse. People in Joburg, I know once again, still no water in many parts of the northern suburbs of Johannesburg. It's day 3, and that should affect you. And further thoughts and comments, you may have heard about it from the ANC Women's League. Also coming out in opposition or asking questions about Zizi Kodwa as an MP for the ANC in Parliament. Right, your comments as we get talking, 086 000 2032. You can WhatsApp as always, text or voice notes, 0614 104 107. And if you're using social media, great that you do that. Tag us, SFM Radio, on Facebook as well as on the X platform, and tweet out your thoughts using the hashtag The National Pulse. You can also tweet me, Ashraf Garda. So let's get talking. And when we talk about talking, let me give you that's my point opener, right? So I woke up at 2:30, and I watched the Proteas cricket team defeat Afghanistan in that World Cup semi-final. It means that for the very first time, our cricketers have qualified for a final of a World Cup, any World Cup. It's crazy because our cricket team's a very, very good team. In the last 20 years or since democracy, we've had, or 30 years therefore, we've had excellent cricket teams. For some reason or the other, they've sort of failed to jump over that final hurdle. But they're in the final now, and we hope that final will ultimately deliver. But the point I want to make is this one. Sport has this amazing ability of just bringing out emotions and pride and patriotism for our country that certainly political parties, I think, can't do it. I mean, just think back to that Rugby World Cup win in 1995, and then again, and then again, and then again. We know that, right? And then Penny Haynes winning at the Olympic Games, and Josiah Tugwani winning that Olympic Games marathon win. Wade van Niekerk, Tatiana Schoenmaker as well. Who else have I forgotten? Anybody? Ched Leclos as well. Then Bafana winning the AFCON in 1996, and then Banyana winning the women's AFCON. Was it a year ago? And we go on, right? And all of that. And what about others that you may think about, all of them, individual or collective. Names I remember, names I can't remember. What they do collectively, they're able to mobilize us, to feel great about our country, even if it's for a day, and sometimes it's more than a day. It inspires us. So here's the point. When it comes to sporting achievements, right, I think sport does what others can't do. And therefore, for example, today, when we talk about the shape of the government of national unity, tell you what, one thing is very, very clear, and I'll throw in Caster Semenya as I talk about Caster Semenya too. Sport has this amazing ability to be a vehicle for national unity. And that for me is a thumbs up all of the time. I'm Ashraf Garda, and that's my point. What's yours?
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
We are going to cover a whole range of issues. Feel free to comment on my thoughts around that's my point about sport, and many of the other issues we've raised. We'll certainly talk. One of the issues, we're going to cross to Kenya once again. In spite of what seems to be a step down by the Kenyan president, the protesters are taking to the streets once again. They feel it's not enough, and you may want to comment. And by the way, if you are from wherever you are, particularly if you're from Kenya listening on streaming live, then it's a good chance for you to, let us know what your thoughts are around that region. But let's start firstly with, I think, an issue that is worth discussing. It's talking about the composition of the African National Congress representatives in KwaZulu-Natal. And I say this because their former deputy mayor of the eThekwini municipality is Logie Naidu. And he's questioned the lack of specifically Indian and coloured people representation in the newly constituted KZN provincial government. Well, Logie Naidu has also criticised his own party, the ANC, accusing it of deviating from its non-racial position. Also arguing that it's wrong that the party has no Indian people in the legislature. It asks the question, maybe specifically about people of Indian background, but more importantly, the other one is has the ANC, are they losing their non-racial character? Let's find out. Logie Naidu is with me, former Deputy Mayor of eThekwini. Welcome to the National Pulse, Logie.
Hi there, good afternoon, and good afternoon to all your listeners.
Good afternoon indeed. Right, now you've written a piece about this and expressed some concern. So perhaps, you talk about, or you've put together an opinion in that piece called Why No Indians in the KZN Cabinet, right? Tell me what you're saying.
Well, firstly, let me say that the election results came as a surprise to many quarters, and in particular, I think in KZN, where the ANC, the ruling party, only won 14 seats, so only 14 of the provincial members on their list are going back to the provincial parliament. So, the point I did raise was, notwithstanding all of the results, we're 30 years into our democracy, and I'm a long-standing member of the ANC, and we've always subscribed to the principles of a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa. And it is in that context I raised the issue so that we can bring about the necessary changes and ensure that our, governance, our legislatures, our spheres of government, rather, reflect the demographics of the country. So this is what I've raised. Mm-hmm. I must put into context the way I have raised the matter. For me, it's I think that if you take KZN, the province has a strong presence of the Indian, English, and Zulu communities. That's the makeup. If you take the Western Cape, I see that, certainly there's a sizable colored community as such. So, and I think that all political parties have the responsibility to ensure that on their lists of people going into the governing structures reflect the demographics of the country. And I think in the KZN context, I think it's not good that we don't have representation from the Indian community.
So let me ask you some questions then, right? I mean, when you say there's no representation, is that a reflection, and we talk about the party that you belong to, the ANC, right? Is that a reflection of the ANC who have not chosen Indian background representation? I mean, they're South Africans, but of Indian heritage, right? Or is it a reflection of people of Indian heritage who've chosen to be less political and less active within the said political parties?
Well, I think that there are still many Indian political activists. Like I indicated, I had said up front that the results had also impacted on the people going into the legislature. From a side example, Maggie Govender from this Chatsworth suburb was on the list but did not make the cut. She was much lower down, and I think the fact that only 14 from the ANC list are going back, it excluded her as such. So, as a result, we do not have the representation of the Indian community as such.
Okay. Has there been a response? I mean, you said you've expressed your opinion. Has the ANC in particular responded to you?
No, I think that we will soon be, I think once the government of national unity is in place, we would be meeting as the ANC family to discuss these and other measures. I must just also point out that there is one representative from the Indian community, Imran Subratri from Durban, who made it on the NCOP list. So he would be in Parliament. But to answer your question, I think that this is a matter for discussion on the agenda going forward as to how we can address this issue. But I also think that you touched on an important point about participation in the political structures. And I want to admit that since 94 to now, there's been a big waning of Indian community participation in ANC structure.
Okay, because I mean, here's the point. I think there are many examples of, and again, and I'm talking to people who are not, Black African to be specific in terms of your conversation, who are active in terms of civic or civil society, and there are just many examples of that, but they're less active in the political spaces. So is it a case of they see them still wanting to provide solutions for the country, but trying to do so outside political spaces because A, they don't see their vision being played out in political spaces, or that vision is being literally played out by those who control the entrance to those powers? Which one would it be?
Well, I think there are many factors that have impacted on people's participation. Some of you will tell you that we're tired of what has happened in South Africa in terms of lack of service delivery, in terms of corruption level, in terms of general governance in South Africa. Whilst others will be frank and honest about you have to be an active participant within the power structures of in this case, the ANC. If you want to bring about change, you have to have a relationship with the ruling party as such. You can be in civil society organizations and foundations. You can shout from the outside.
Yeah, but you see, I'm going to interject you only because we're running out of time. But when you say you have to, some may say you don't have to because some of the serious problems around service delivery has come because of the lack of service delivery from the up to now the ruling party, and that is your party. That's where the problem is. Maybe here's the last thing, right? Do you find that, and you've got about 30 seconds to respond to this one? Do you find that this lack of non-racialism within the ANC, which was their hallmark, is actually costing the ANC?
I think, yes, certainly. In some respects, it impacts on people's willingness to support and participate in the organization. And has certainly impacted, but it's not the only reason as such.
That's where we're going to leave it. Appreciate your time. Well, you certainly put something on the agenda that we need to be talking about, Logie Naidu, and we'll pick up that conversation after 5 o'clock as well about, is the ANC losing its non-racial character, and maybe other parties too, and if so, what does that say about South Africa 2024 and going forward? Thanks for your time. Much appreciated. You listening in, you can call in. It's the National Pulse. What moves the National Pulse? Besides the people we speak to, it's your thoughts, your opinion. So what's your take on my conversation with Logie Naidu? 0614 104 107. Let's hear it. You can also tweet it out too.
Hey there. Need to know your TV license balance but don't want to wait? No sweat. Just send a quick SMS with your ID or TV license number to 44210. Remember, standard SMS rates apply. And presto, your balance pops right up anytime, anywhere. It's as easy as pie. So why procrastinate? Give it a try and get your info in a flash. T's and C's apply.
Municipal services play a vital role in keeping our city safe, clean, and functional. By paying for municipal services like your water bill, you're investing in the future of the city of Johannesburg's water supply. Paying for your services is not just a transaction, but a commitment to the sustainability of your community. Let's continue to pave the way for a brighter tomorrow, one payment at a time. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
So, question, do you think you're paying too much on your car insurance? My guess is everybody's going to say yes, right? Well, 56-year-old Dylan, he's got a story. He said no to sky-high insurance premiums. He's now insured without insurance and pays 756 rands a month to insure his white 2023 Haval Jolian S, right? So that's a good price, right? To follow in Dylan's footsteps, simply SMS out to 30754 for a quote. That's out, OUT, to 30754. License, insurer, and FSB. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, there's so much happening in our country. There's so much happening around the world. There's excellence on the sporting field, and I'll get your calls in a few minutes' time, as well as other thoughts on that conversation with Logie Naidu. But what about the government of national unity? And what about our cabinet? And when will that get announced? So the country has been waiting, and been waiting for a while now. Now, News 24 is reporting that the Democratic Alliance is not happy about the fact that President Ramaphosa is no longer prepared to give them what he initially promised them. Okay, are you confused? Well, I'll be confused as well. Let's get the thoughts of Mzwai Mjeje, who's the SABC News political reporter. In fact, we'll get some voice notes. We'll connect with him in just a moment or so. Here's some thoughts in terms of your comments, right?
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and your guest, Flores, here from the Western Cape. Ashraf, I'm a colored person, and let me tell you, I'm 54 years old, and South African politics has never revolved around coloreds and Indians. It's only between the blacks and the white people. That's why for many a year I did not vote, because those two groupings are not interested in us as coloreds and as Indians. So I hope this time around that Gayton McKenzie will really take up the baton and promise us what he said about the colored people to better their lives, because Patricia de Lille has always been there just for her own benefit, man. That's a political chameleon of note, a political grasshopper of note. She's jumping from one party to another just for her own benefit and not for colored people, as he claims. Have a good job.
Thank you, much appreciated. I don't know if I agree with you. I think the fact is, you must understand which country you're living in, and therefore most of the issues must center around the majority of the people. On the other hand, I think the ANC historically has paid a lot of attention to issues across the non-racial spectrum of South Africa, and yes, I think it's only fair, in my opinion, if your racial grouping is 3 or 5% of the group of the national amount, don't expect to be attention to be 30%. It's just not going to be the case. I don't think I want to be in a situation where there's just very, very narrow streaming where we just cater for one community over another. I mean, that's my thoughts. Okay, let's talk about the NGU, right? The government, GNU, Government of National Unity. Ms. Y. Mbeje with me, the SABC News political editor. Good chatting to you. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners.
I've been waiting. I'm waiting for you to make the announcement, and it's not happening. Why?
Well, I can tell you now that we are in the final maybe days, hours or even days before the announcement is made, because in terms of the consultation and everything that everyone was looking through and going through, it's pretty much sorted. But of course, when the announcement is made, Ashraf, it may not necessarily be that which people have been conditioned to think it will be. I know people were expecting that it will be obviously those 10 parties, not necessarily having cabinet positions or even in the executive. But it does appear to be an issue with the DA at the moment, and that is why, as I'm speaking to you, either later today they will be having a FedEx meeting. A FedEx meeting is a Federal Executive Committee meeting, more like the NWC of the ANC, where they'll process some decision. In fact, what they are going to do there, Ashraf, is that they are going to take this final offer that the ANC or the president has tabled to them of 6 ministers, and I think about 6 deputy ministers. And what makes it an issue, they had, amongst those portfolios they had been offered, was a trade and industry department, and it looks like to have been changed at the 11th hour, and that is what is being discussed. And I think the DA is very unhappy about this.
Okay, so let me understand this correctly. I mean, there's been lots of to and fro. You made the point about this key position of trade and industry, and you suggesting it's been taken away from the DA, and therefore they're unhappy, and therefore their FedEx meeting. Have I read that correctly?
Please repeat your question.
That the DA are unhappy with the shifts from the ANC, or rather the ANC in terms of their position within the cabinet, right? And therefore the DA has now referred themselves back to their federal council that you speak about, the federal executive, right? And that means what? That they're rethinking something?
Yeah, I think what is basically happening is that, just maybe to clarify for the listeners, is that the DA had pretty much accepted the offer of that was presented to it by the ANC. But I think what then triggered them was that out of that offer of the positions, there was a DTI department there. So the ANC then withdrew it and then offered it a Department of Tourism. I think that is the issue that made them perhaps to think twice about this. That's why they are going to go back to it and look at it. But they are very unhappy about it. They feel they are being played by the ANC, and that's why the next few hours will be very crucial in terms of what the DA does.
Okay, yet your initial point, you said like we're literally into that home straight. I mean, this suggests that if they're unhappy and their federal council's not happy, then they could be further apart than they were a week ago.
Oh yes, remember the ANC or the president still has the option of a minority government. So it's not far-fetched because 9 other parties will still be there, and I guess we'll find a situation where the government of national unity will really become the minority government, something that people were not necessarily expecting, with the hope that others that are outside, like EFF and MK, perhaps they'll still be spoken to. I guess at a later stage, they may want to join.
Okay, two things, and you can answer in 30 seconds. We're on to news time, right? Why has the ANC, in your opinion, changed its mind in terms of the portfolios they've offered to the DA? And B, do you genuinely think that this could well mark the exit of the DA from the Government of National Unity?
And I think, remember, the ANC also has alliance partners, Ashraf, which you still engage with. It's likely that perhaps after that initial engagement, and then some of the alliance partners, or even some of the key personnel within the ANC, may have felt perhaps the Trade and Industry Department is quite crucial in terms of the outlook of the country. I mean, if you look at the foreign policy and the trade and industry and the kind of business you do with countries from outside, perhaps they would want it aligned. So that would be my suspicion. And then, if then the DA decides to walk away, yes, I guess the ANC will still characterize it as a government of national unity, but in all fairness, it will be a minority government.
And the question then is, how will the country perceive the ANC? How will the country perceive the DA? And did I say it, how do the markets perceive both of them? Because I understand the rand has weakened in the last 24 hours or so. Well, appreciate your time. We're certainly going to follow the story with great interest. And he certainly explains why there's been a delay after delay after delay regarding the announcement of that all-important executive, the cabinet. Mzwai Mbeje, the SABC News political editor, much appreciate your time. I go straight then to the news headlines with Madupi Makhalamela.
Mr. Garda, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, the DA will be meeting this evening to determine if they'll be accepting the ANC's latest offer. This as the ANC has allegedly proposed 6 cabinet ministers to the DA, including trade and industry. The ANC Veterans League has criticized the swearing in of ANC NEC member Zizi Kodwa to Parliament, stating that it is incomprehensible. And 3 men have been shot dead at Heberdean on the KZN South Coast. I'll be back with a full news update at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic. This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Khapeli.
Okay, as always, sport with Tumi. Before I even get to you, so I was up at 2:30 this morning, and I know Tumi was up because I didn't call her, but she was tweeting and she was watching the South African team, the Proteas, winning their World Cup semi-finals. I wonder what's your top story?
The top story is nothing other than the Proteas. And very good afternoon to you and our listeners. Well, former Proteas T20 captain Themba Bavuma has hailed South Africa for showing courage after the team booked their spot in the final of the T20 World Cup. The Proteas beat Afghanistan by 9 wickets to advance to the final for the first time. And Bavuma, who's currently now in Europe, says this was a long time coming.
Such a surreal moment. I can only imagine what the boys are feeling. It's been a long time coming for this group of players who have been with each other for the last couple of years, 4 or 5 years, gone through a lot with each other, tough moments, and yeah, this is one of the moments the boys have been thinking about. But look, I don't want to make this too long, but I wish the boys all the best in the final. Make sure that I sort out my VPN so I can watch them in the final. Whatever the boys have been doing so far, let them continue with it. And we'll be waiting for them at Oral Tambo either way, to congratulate them and give them massive hugs. But all the best, boys. We're all behind you.
I will definitely be one of the person that will be at OR Tambo when the Proteas come back. But the final is on Saturday, and it starts at 4:30. We're going to find out today if South Africa is going to face England or India. And I have some good news that I'll be sharing with our cricket fans in the next hour regarding how you can show your support to the boys. So definitely looking forward to the news that I'm going to share with our fans.
Okay, before we get on to other sport, let me just pick up on the cricket. This is the biggest issue of the day as far as I'm concerned, right? I mean, a stunning victory, right? I mean, I know it's only Afghanistan, but the same Afghanistan beat Australia, and they beat Bangladesh, and they beat New Zealand. So it's incredible what that team has done. But when it's mattered, we've delivered a stunning victory.
Absolutely. I mean, I was so proud. Janssen, they're setting the tone, and then Kagiso Rabada just putting a stamp on it after a while. I thought Afghanistan wouldn't get to 50, honestly,
Okay.
at the rate the match was going. But yeah, the Proteas really did well. The bowling was prolific.
The way Afghanistan bowled the first 2 overs, I thought we won't get to 50. I promise you that they were hugely impressive. But I'll stay with the theme of ones, right?
Yeah.
Because they beat Nepal by 1. In this case here, they won with just 1 wicket down. So now they're playing for their number 1 final. They've never played in a final before, so it's all 1-1-1. I really hope we win.
Absolutely. Then we move on to rugby. The Bulls have announced Piwe Nomlomo as the head coach of the Protea outfit for the Pretoria outfit rather, for the 2024 Currie Cup campaign. Piwe joined the Bulls in August 2023 as an assistant coach with a focus on the skills hub alongside Kennedy Nzimba. And Piwe will work alongside Werner Kruger, John Deet and Nzimba. Then in football, Carabao Cup semi-finalists Middlesbrough have been drawn away to championship rivals Leeds United in the first round of the 2024-25 competition. Derby County, who are back in the championship next term, will host the East Midlands rivals Chesterfield, who return to the competition for the first time in 6 years after earning promotion back to the English Football League. Sheffield United will face Wrexham in a repeat of their dramatic FA Cup fourth round tie from 2023, and the first round of the matches will take place during the week commencing the 12th of August, with the final set for Wembley on the 16th of March 2025. Still staying with football, renowned sports sponsorship and brand specialist Squili Gumete says that Itumeleng Khune must carefully think about continuing his playing career away from Amakhosi. At the beginning of the season, the Soweto Giants announced that this would be the 37-year-old's final season as an active player, although he appeared to contradict the statement during the campaign.
If I was advising Kune, I mean, obviously, first of all, it's always difficult to make comments on these things because I certainly just don't have enough facts to know exactly what his options are, what's on the table, what may or may not be happening in terms of other clubs maybe offering him something, or maybe Chiefs also saying to him, we don't have a playing contract here anymore, a playing future, but we think that you could join the technical team as an assistant goalkeeper coach or join our development as one of the coaches. But the reality is that he would be much better off staying at Chiefs and building his career outside of football, maybe as part of the technical team with Chiefs than anywhere else.
Then in Olympic news, a beach volleyball player who was jailed for raping a 12-year-old girl is set to represent the Netherlands at the Paris Olympics. The 29-year-old was sentenced to 4 years in prison in 2016 after admitting 3 counts of rape against a child, which took place in August 2014. He was allowed to serve his sentence in the Netherlands, but was released after just 12 months, and now he will be flying the Netherlands flag high at the Olympics. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour for SAFM Sport. And you're going
to have an early night tonight, right? After
Absolutely.
Being awake the whole night last night.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, got that, Jimmy. We'll talk to you again in an hour's time.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound has a crash reported at Denver. The R24 westbound in Bruma has delays approaching Marcia Street. The N3 southbound in Alexandra has a stationary vehicle after Marlborough Drive. The N3 southbound in Germiston has a crash at Geldnys Interchange. The N12 westbound in Eldorado Park is where a crime scene is reported before the Klipspruit Valley Road exit. In KZN, the N3 eastbound is slow moving between Cliffdale and Key Ridge. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and Bel Air Road has roadworks with traffic restrictions near Chief Albert Lutuli Hospital. In Cape Town, Batencroft Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. Montague Drive southbound is queuing towards Bosmansdam Road. Strand Road eastbound in Stickland is slow moving towards the R300 highway. Broadway Boulevard eastbound in Strand has a crash reported at Broadlands Road, and Main Road is slow moving in the central Wynberg area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Hello, Your Choice Hotline.
Hi, I need you to help me make a choice.
Well, with Ford, you get to make your own choices. Like on a new Ford Ranger, Ford Puma, Ford Everest, and the Ford Tornado bus. There's a flexible deal for every budget at your nearest Ford dealership today. Limited time offer. Your Ford, your choice. T&Cs apply.
Water infrastructure vandalism has costly and usually dangerous consequences. Stealing of manhole covers leads to the death of children. Every broken pipe or vandalized pump doesn't just cost money, but it also threatens our access to clean water, disrupts service delivery, and endangers public health and safety. Help us in the fight against water infrastructure vandalism by reporting any suspicious activity to the City of Johannesburg on 0800 002 587. Your vigilance can prevent a death or disaster. This message is brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get to, in fact, we're going to get to some of your comments now on some of the big issues. I also understand there's been another letter from the President, Ramaphosa, South Africa, ANC President, to the DA leader, John Steenhuisen. And again, it suggests very much that the parties are further away from agreeing than they were before. But we will certainly follow up on that conversation. Let's get your calls now. Nivari in Bombela, hi.
Azra, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and great to connect with you. Right, go ahead. What's your point?
What's interesting, what Naidu is raising, and that should be the question that the ANC must grapple with. Look, the character of the ANC of being non-socialism, it can only be on paper. And I was attempted to say probably we must even put the people of color. Remember the ANC configuration from the Indian Congress and the Colored Congress defined the struggle of South Africa in terms of how it was configured. I've got a question that I think I do answer, because when I went to Durban in one of provincial gathering of the ANC, I only saw one Indian. And I conspired to comrades to say that what is happening in Durban in a gathering of the ANC and you find one Indian? It might be that they're not mobilized as well. So he must work very hard to mobilize Indians in the ANC because they belong to the ANC. There's not any other home in South Africa where Indians belong.
Well, I mean, I think, that's the point. If you go back to the UDF, right, the UDF was as a broad-based organization, if you want to call it ANC internal, that you would ever get, right? And that appears to be lost. Now, one may say there's apathy from the groups, but also I think then political parties have not worked hard enough to want these people to be part of their structures. So when you say you're right, when you're going to have one Indian in a branch, you're certainly not going to get that person elected. It's just not going to work that way.
No, it's complex, Ajana, when we have economic challenges. Remember, these are economic questions as well.
Yeah.
So comrades in the ANC, when they start to battle with the economic sector, they retreat back to blackness. More blackness. And that undermines the character of the ANC. So Indians must fight for their space in the ANC. Where they are located, they must take charge and occupy space in terms of the ideology of the ANC, because we'll lose it completely and become a Pan-Africanist organization.
Okay, got that interesting one. Yeah. Thanks for that, Nivari. In fact, a few days ago, we chatted, remember a few days ago we chatted to Tembisa Fakure, right? And he made the point that of all the parties within South Africa, the one party that has always retained its non-racial character has been the ANC, and the ANC must not lose that. So in many ways, he's saying exactly what we're talking about now. That conversation will come up. Further thoughts on the ANC losing its non-racial character. I'm certainly up for that. And you can bring in other parties too, right? Let's, however, move on to other issues, still in KZN, by the way. With me now now is the MEC for Transport and Human Settlements in the KwaZulu-Natal region. That is Siboniso Duma. He's also the provincial chairperson of the ANC. And he talks to us about, well, his new portfolio and other things, and of course the issues of, how that GNU talks have played out in his region and nationally, if we can. So the MEC for Transport and Human Settlements, MEC Duma, appreciate your time. You're live with the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf, for affording us this opportunity to please your listeners at home at the same time.
Much appreciated. Right, first of all, let's talk about your position as MEC for Transport and Human Settlements. How's that playing out in terms of your plans?
I think I must just first thank the predecessor, Comrade Sipho Shemuga, who is currently serving at Education, and Comrade Mboso, who is serving in Human Settlement. We are privileged in, I think, the province of KwaZulu-Natal that since the enactment of the Constitution and since the new dispensation, we've been in charge of this department, in particular Department of Transport. Former Smoon Dabali has been the premier and the chair of the ANC, served in this department. So I'm the 8th MEC, all coming from the ANC. So it will be easy for me to adapt in this environment, because that was my colleague. It has been the vision of the ANC. So the issue of the Freedom Charter is something that has been understood within the ambit of this department. So if you see our annual performance plan, it will talk to that in terms of the vision. Probably same thing applies to human settlement. Although there have been some changes because of the global warming, how we do and how do we develop, and something that I will contribute immensely in terms of health detection, in terms of the waterlogged areas, the floods line, that people must not build around those areas, in particular in the urban stream, at Tegwini, Inland, the district, Renkoyen. So I think we are just going to delve deeper instantly and hit the ground running in that situation.
Okay. What for you then are the biggest challenges that let's say you would face in your portfolio, but also as the chairperson of the ANC in the province, and that province that has now dramatically changed its character?
I like historical what you have already attributed to, that the ANC is not any like other organization. So we must always, because we are known to believe in the society, but even in Africa, they do claim the ANC because ideological. It has produced the giants who have served even in different countries of Africa, but it must always rise above, because it is always a composite of a strong ideological battle of Africans, in particular ensuring that we serve different purposes, but we also compensate in ensuring that we always safeguard those who are vulnerable, the communities. So, as you know, that the GPU in the province of KwaZulu-Natal is not a new thing. Former President Zuma himself served in the premiership, where it was led by IFP at that particular time, Premium Dlaloso. So he was the chair of the ANC in the province. He served as the MC area. It was also Comrade Mundela who served in transport, that Comrade Zelinkiza who served in the health. So we could always use that as the yardstick. We could always use that as a benchmark, because some of those Comrade Ndebele is still actively involved. We've utilized him as well as part of in the negotiating team. So it is easy to achieve some of the milestones, because we must always know that because we didn't get or amass enough vote, we must always work with others. That's what the voters are saying to us. And our ears are strong enough to understand the modalities, the changing environment, and how, as the ANC, must adapt to that reality and go back, debrief our structures, gently interact with them on a regular basis up until such time this is the only vehicle, then they're going to come back. I'm sure you know what happened at Umzumbe in particular. Those 6 wards that have been won by MK during the elections, the ANC came back and won them, even increased the numbers, even in those that it didn't win. So all those things must do the research. We must not purge people. We must not divide. We just have to embrace the spirit of Ubuntu amongst us. We must also go deeper in ensuring that introspection, what has not gone correct for the ANC over the last 8 years.
Okay.
Probably the successes and all those things.
How then do you intend to navigate KZN region, considering the party that received the most votes would be the MK party, and they're not represented in this provincial unity, and naturally there would be dissatisfaction, if not from the party leaders, certainly from the electorate who voted for them, and ultimately you want to get them on your side, right?
I'm sure you understand that the history of KwaZulu-Natal is not a good history because there's been a rivalry between the ANC and IFP. But we have to navigate. I was saying that in another line that unfortunately in 94, when we have 3 MECs or we have 3 comrades who are serving in the cabinet, in 95 people were killed brutally. It means that our negotiating tool, our posture in leading the society, engaging amakhosi, izinduna, the tax association and sectoral mobilization, it's something that we know as among our 4 pillars. Currently, we must negotiate with everyone who is serving in that legislature because MKP and EFF are not part of the executive, but they must understand that life does not stop there. They must also contribute, which is why when we have a provincial dialogue, when we have Izimbizo, they must be at the forefront because we are rebuilding the province of KwaZulu-Natal that have suffered immensely. We've got in the province of Natal, because of rurality of the province, other areas we still have to build more bridges. There is an area called Nkovuleni. The Department of Transport must still build a road and a big bridge so that our people are not going to school crossing the river. We've already started the process. Okay. So those issues we must.
All right, let's wrap up with this, and we've got 30 seconds to answer this. You know, my understanding, based on conversations we've had today, and seeing letters from the ANC as well as from President Ramaphosa, right, that it appears that the ANC and the DA appear to be further apart than they ever were. What do you, with regard to thrashing out a deal, what do you make of that? I mean, just a short answer.
I think these processes are very tedious in their nature. They are complex, which is why you must always take your time, read and learn from other countries that have done it in the past. Because remember, like for instance, in Netherlands, they just identify a mediator. In our countries, the politicians, leaders themselves are involved, and some in that process are still going to benefit in terms of position. Let us say that lower our guards, lower our egos. Let us work for the betterment of our people.
Let's see what happens. Much appreciate your time. The MEC for Transport and Human Settlements, Siboniso Duma. There's certainly issues happening on the provincial and the national scale. It is the National Pulse.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Experience Food Lovers Market's unbeatable value with a 7 kg potato pocket, a butternut pocket, an orange pocket, a 3 kg onion bag and a 3 kg carrot bag for 199 Rand per combo. A 1 kg pack of Food Lovers lean beef mince for 79.99 and 2 1-litre bottles of Fresco Liva blended olive oil for 100 Rand. Valid until this Sunday at Food Lovers Market. It's in the experience.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, we certainly will pick up on many of the conversations, including the issue of the call for a national dialogue. Don't miss that. All that in the context of things that are appearing to come together and maybe falling apart. I don't know regarding that cabinet, right? Okay, we're going to talk about that as soon as we can. I'll get your calls. There are many people wanting to call and comment as well, and I'll do that as soon as I can. In the meantime, let's talk to Hassan Lorgad, who's the convener of the South African Civil Society Tailings Working Group, and we talk to him around issues that are really important around laws and regulations in South Africa, around the issues of the impact of tailing dams. And you may ask, what does all that mean? So, Hassan, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Thank you for having me. Your last speaker, Ashraf, spoke about climate change and how it impacts on KZN and other provinces.
Yeah.
what we want to do is to alert the public that these tailing dams basically are the waste left over when you take away the rich parts, the shiny minerals that you sell in diamond shops and that's left over is waste. And that waste is filled with water, chemicals, and results in water pollution, soil contamination, like acid mine drainage, heavy metals leaching. So there are a number of problems with it. But the world has seemed to have only woken up to this issue after 2019. At least this is the powerful in the world, because poor people have always suffered when these dams collapse. In Brazil, a mine owned by Vale burst its dams in Brumadinho, Brazil, and it resulted in 272 people dying. This spurred on the mining bosses to introduce some kind of global industry standards on tailings. And we from civil society thought, while this is a great step forward, it is not good enough. And we introduced safety first a few years later, and now we're campaigning around it to make sure that citizens, those who live nearby, are informed, empowered, and have rights to say where mines can be built and where they can't be built, because it impacts so heavily on people. We know from Jagersfontein when people died, and up to today, 2 years on, we haven't got the results of what happened there. What lessons have we learned? So we are impoverished when the government and regulatory bodies don't work well. But clearly the corporations are the first line of blame in our line of thinking.
It's interesting. We find lessons. We spoke about the 2-year anniversary of the tavern in East London yesterday, and again, lessons learned and not enough lessons being implemented. The same could well apply in your case, right? So in terms of, therefore, your working group and your coming together today in Rosebank, what then is the plan? Because I would sense it would mean an escalation of what? Activism and a form of action taking, if anything?
Yeah, it's a kind of smart activism. We thought we needed to make sure that men and women and all other genders be present from the start when we're building this movement. We got the Mine Workers Union involved, and they came. We invited all other groupings. So we're trying to concentrate on improving our knowledge, because there are so many laws in the country. Part of our biggest fear when it comes to tailings is the fragmentation. That you don't even know. You remember when the Jagersfontein Dam burst, you had our minister say, no, this is not our baby. At the end of the day, it's government's baby, but he said it was a Department of Water Affairs, which is true, because it is governed by the Water Act, the Minerals Act, the Mine Health and Safety Act, so many acts, right? And they seem to be for communities such a disadvantage. When you have a complaint, sorry, this is remining, it's not a mine, it's not a water affairs, it goes to the DMRE. We really want government to get its act together. And we really want a coalition of government with the people from below. They must actually take us into their confidence and start treating people correctly, because it's good to have shiny minerals, but not at the expense of other people dying.
Okay, we're talking at a time about a coalition with government when government itself is battling to form a coalition itself, right? So I would take it that
it's a social contract.
I would take it this level of activism will be escalated once you know exactly who you need to deal with, right?
Well, we had, and in fairness to Minister of the Director General of Department of Water and Sanitation, they sat by yesterday from the morning until 5 o'clock with us, sitting in, listening to communities and replying to us. And we also commend them for some of the work that they're doing. They're reaching out and they humble themselves to actually be with us. They were a bit afraid that we probably have stones in our pockets hidden away. We keep that in reserve, but clearly we think that when tailings are such a problem, when they burst, Ashraf, as the video I tried to share with you guys, they go down 50, 100 kilometers away and kill everyone in the site. And climate change, given the extremities of heat and cold in our society, is a real challenge on these dams, because they are water, and when it rains, this is what happens, they burst, and then people do not listen to frontline workers. The unions, the NUM in Jagersfontein, inform people. The mayor and others said, hey, this thing is precarious, but people do not listen to frontline workers who are the first line of defense for communities. But the consequences are so severe. And this is an issue where I think we are all in it together. And that's why we unashamedly say there needs to be a social compact as governments who are elected need to have with their citizens. But if we die, as they say, sofa sonke.
Yeah, well, okay, let's see how strong that social compact may be. Just in 30 seconds, when you talk about the impact it has on community, just express it a bit clearer in terms of what happens to communities impacted by the issues of tailings and dams?
Yeah, unregulated tailings. I mean, it's not uncommon that young kids go and swim and die in there. We saw yesterday in one of the presentations, kids eat this acid mine. They eat the sand. We've got animals and people living nearby, blind, goats and animals being blind, simply because the regulation around how these dams are maintained is very, very poor. And you know, South Africa's got over 6,000 ownerless and derelict mines. That means government says they don't know who owns these mines. They're not properly closed. You know, I mean, in Western Cape, for example, you have 866 of these mines. Northern Cape, 1,000 somewhat that you don't know who the owners are. But I don't think that is fair. You get an investigator, they'll know who the people are. Absolutely. Because the profits went to them.
Well, I mean, you're right. There needs to be a stock taken, and if they don't have an inventory, I mean, there's just something seriously wrong about all of that. Hassan, thanks for bringing it up. I think this is like opening line of creating additional awareness around the issues of mine waste and tailing dams. Hassan Lorgat is the convener of the South African Civil Society Tailings Working Group. How much do you know about that? Number one. Number two, what do you think about it? Hassan's got his point. You have your point. What more needs to be done? Nationally, provincially, and then the mine owners themselves, and then the impact on the community. Lots of questions, answers, most welcome. Let's get the news now with Madubi. It's 4 o'clock.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. The top stories this hour, the DA to discuss the ANC's latest offer, and Sudan sees a rapid increase in hunger. A very good afternoon. The DA will be meeting this evening to determine if they'll be accepting the ANC's latest offer. This as the ANC has allegedly proposed 6 cabinet ministers to the DA, including trade and industry. However, the ANC appears to have done a U-turn at the 11th hour by allegedly withdrawing the trade and industry offer. This is a move that has left a bitter taste with the DA. Sibahle Mota reports.
The Democratic Alliance, which is set to sit this evening, is apparently unhappy with the withdrawal of the Department of Trade and Industry portfolio, which the ANC had offered along with 5 others, which include Home Affairs, Basic Education and Communication, amongst others. As it stands, it seems the fate of the DA participating in the government of national unity rests on the FedEx meeting this evening. The meeting decides whether to accept the ANC's latest offer or not. I am Sibahle Mota in Johannesburg.
The ANC Veterans League has criticized the swearing-in of ANC NEC member Zizi Kodwa to Parliament, stating that it is incomprehensible. In a letter addressed to ANC SG Fikile Mbalula, the League's SG Ilvalanga says the decision by the party to allow Kodwa to be sworn in as an MP is nothing but a misapplication of the step-aside rule. This as Kodwa, who is facing corruption charges involving 1.7 million rand, was released on 30,000 rand bail after being implicated in state capture. Langa says the Veterans League will be proposing that the step-aside guidelines be reviewed. He adds that Kodwa's personal interests should not be put above that of the ANC. 3 men have been shot dead at Hibadeen on the KZN South Coast. Police say the 3 motorists were killed execution style. Spokesperson Jay Niker says the driver and his 2 passengers had just left the local court and were about to enter the main road when they were cornered by the suspects.
Police at Hibadeen are probing a triple murder at Mtoluma. A shooting occurred at Mtoluma which claimed the lives of 3 motorists who were killed execution style. It is believed that the driver and his 2 passengers had just left the local court and were about to enter the main road when they were cornered by the suspects who were traveling in 2 vehicles. The suspects opened fire on the vehicle, killing all 3 occupants instantly before fleeing the scene. It is believed that the deceased were also robbed of their firearms. The motive for the attack remains unclear at this time, and detectives at Hibadeen are probing the triple murder.
The judgment in the Life Esidimeni inquest will be handed down on the 10th of next month by the High Court in Pretoria. It was meant to be delivered tomorrow, however, the matter was rescheduled. This follows a tragic incident where more than 100 mental health care patients lost their lives in 2016. They were relocated from Life Esidimeni in 2015 and 2016 to ill-prepared NGOs. The judgment will be delivered virtually by Judge Munoatefo, as Lerato Makola reports.
8 years later, the judgment into the inquest into the deaths of live esidimeni patients who died during the tragedy is yet to be delivered. The inquiry began virtually in 2021. Judge Munwatefu is due to recommend to the NPA whether any health officials should be charged with culpable homicide for their involvement in the tragic deaths. Section 27 has asked the inquest to recommend that former Gauteng Health MEC Gedani Mahlangu be criminally charged for the deaths of the patients. For SABC News, I'm Lerato Makula in Johannesburg.
And the UN says there's been a stark and rapid increase in hunger in Sudan, where 14 months of war have taken some of the areas to the brink of famine. The Food and Agriculture Organization says more than half the entire population are suffering with severe food shortages. The BBC's Kalkidan Yilbadal reports.
As Sudan's deadly war continues to rage, more than 25 million people are facing food shortages described as crisis level or even worse. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization said its latest analysis showed the worst food insecurity ever recorded in Sudan's history since it began measuring. There is a risk of famine in multiple areas across the country, coinciding with the lean season between June and September, the agency added. Alarms have continued to be sounded of a potential national collapse if more than a year of fighting continues in Sudan.
The top story at 4 o'clock, the DA will be meeting this evening to determine if they'll be accepting the ANC's latest offer. For SAFM News, Kimudupima Khalimel.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound has a crash reported at Denver. The N3 southbound in Germiston has a crash at Geldenhuys interchange. The N12 westbound in El Dorado Park, an earlier crime scene just before Klipspruit Valley Road exit, has been cleared, but traffic remains slow moving. And the N14 northbound in Pretoria has delays towards the R101 interchange. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pinetown is queuing at Marion Hill Toll Plaza. The M4 has roadworks with traffic restrictions at Tongaat Beach, so expect delays. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 southbound in Howick has a crash reported at Lions River. In Cape Town, Chapman's Peak Drive is closed due to rockfalls. The N1 inbound is queuing towards Brighton Road exit. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend, and the N7 Jakes Harville Drive southbound is slow moving at Voortrekker Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Coming up in your sports this hour, CSA announced the SA Under-19 Women's T20 Series to ramp up World Cup prep, and Samuel Sepeng excited to join legendary brother Hezekiel at the Olympics. More details at 4:30.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a lot happening in the country. This when we talk about the National Pulse, earlier on I did say that the cricket team's victory over Afghanistan has knocked the GNU and the issue of the cabinet maybe off its top of the agenda in the National Pulse, but things change dramatically so, right? And if you've heard that conversation that I had earlier on with the SABC political editor Mzwa Mbeje, that it suggests there's huge problems around what's going on with regard to the DA and the ANC. Now we know that President Ramaphosa has also sent a letter to John Steenhuisen called Dear John, and giving him a whole lot of things, and we will talk about that later. We'll also continue talking about the broader issue of the ANC losing its non-racial character, yes, no, and maybe other parties as well, and you can give me your thoughts. In the light of all of that, I think the next conversation is also really important. But let me just tell you, by the way, for those of you listening, and you can tweet out anytime. You can also comment as we're listening, and if you don't WhatsApp, you can comment on our X or Twitter platform, SFM Radio, tag me, Ashraf Garda, use the hashtag The National Pulse, do the same on Facebook as well. But otherwise, if you can call in, it's, as always, 086 000 2032, WhatsApp, text, voice notes, 0614 104 107. And as always, for people who are regulars doing this, many people do it every day. Tell me where you're listening from. I'd love to know. And also if you're listening on streaming live from around the world, but I want to know that too. Right, now, in the light of all the things that we've been speaking about the national pulse and what moves it, this is important. Foundations, many in the name of eminent South Africans, have expressed concern over what they term the perilous state the country finds itself in. The foundations, who are, amongst others, concerned about the uncertainty confronting the country, they held a press conference in Johannesburg earlier today to call on the nation to take part in a national dialogue aimed at paving a new way forward. Now, what is a national dialogue? How does it compare with the Government of National Unity and the election we've just had? Nkosinathi Biko is with me, the Chief Executive Officer of the Steve Biko Foundation. Nkosinathi, I appreciate your time. You are live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Ashraf. Thanks for the invitation. Good afternoon to your listeners as well.
Good, right. So what's the plan? I mean, there's a concern, I understand, but what's the plan?
Yes. So just going by your introduction, we are aware that as we sit, there are conversations around the formation of a government of national unity. What is evident is that those conversations are really about power sharing. One would have hoped that we have landed so many days after an election, a very important election. We have had landed by government a message that reminds us about our national priorities and the things that we must do differently to move us out of the quagmire that we find ourselves in. If you will see what is happening just to our economy, you will have an economy that has pushed about 54% of its citizens beneath the breadline, and an economy reputed around the world to be the most unequal society. What we are inviting citizens to do as this foundation is to say we have mastered the art of participating in electoral democracy. How about building a culture where substantive democracy is improved? We are involved in the management of our country in the period between elections. And so we are calling on citizens to participate in a conversation led by citizens, but a conversation that will obviously interface with government, with business and other spheres of our lives, to develop this common vision that can help us get back on a better trajectory as we take on the next 30 years.
Okay, so I mean, there are political parties. I think the country's problems didn't just appear today. They've been going on for a long time, and there's been a steady decline in the living standards of the vast majority of South Africans. I think that much we know. Is this national dialogue, would that take place with political parties, without political parties? And if it's with, I mean, what would be the relationship between civil society and foundations like yours and the existing political parties? Many of them would be in government as part of the Government of National Unity if that does not collapse. And I say that because I know as I talk to you, there appears to be some spat between President Ramaphosa as well as the DA leader John Steenhuisen.
Yes, so the foundations themselves are part of civil society. There are numerous organizations that are active in that space. What we recognize is that the values and the example offered by the people in whose name these foundations draw, that those people have a proven history in contributing to the construction of our democracy. And we could activate that history to remind our people to continue to be agents of our democracy. Now, this is a citizen, if you like, a bottom-up approach, where we are organizing citizens to be at the center of this. Otherwise, there will be conversations but without us, such as we are seeing seemingly happen in the power play. Right? And it's important, Ashraf, because I do think that South Africans have become used to ceding their power at election and sitting back and complaining in the periods between elections. And people have tried different models where they have come as new players in the political space, but perhaps even as saviors. And we are saying we will not be presumptuous. We will activate, though, a platform that we can get people seated around. And we've looked at a whole range of institutions, not just of civil society, we look at the labor space, we will look at business, and government itself is expected to be seated at that table, hopefully after they've sorted whether it's a coalition or a government of national unity. But it will be important for them to know what are the things, to be reminded of the things that are important to our people. And so we are watching the developments around this GNU and hope that it can be settled as soon as possible so that we can get on with the business of identifying the priorities in this country.
And who are the we? I mean, in terms of the various foundations that are part of it.
So the ones that have originated the invitation includes the following foundations. So you have the Ahmed Katrada Foundation, the Chief Albert Lutuli Foundation, the Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation, James Farrow Foundation, the Olive and Adelaide Tambo Foundation, the Robert Mangali Sosobuko Trust, the Steve Biko Foundation, the Taban Beki Foundation, and the Umlambo Foundation.
Okay.
Since we had that conversation earlier today, there's a number of others that have already raised their hands, and this is in essence what we are trying to do with the process, to get as many people going as possible as we embark on defining the detail of this. So starting next week, our group will be sitting down to develop the content of the National Dialogue Program, which will lead us into work streams that we will then ultimately round up as a national compact that we hope government, parliament, business, and everybody can draw from.
I've noticed that the Nelson Mandela Foundation at this point in time is a notable absentee in the names that you've mentioned. Any reason why are they not there?
No, you should not read anything more into it
Okay.
other than the fact that various foundations have got processes, and these foundations were able to conclude their internal consultations with their government structures. Nelson Mandela has given a general support for this. We, in fact, were at the Mandela Sanctuary this afternoon, and I'm sure they will be making their own announcement, as we expect many others to.
I understand. So here's one other thing before I let you go. I remember a couple of years ago, at the height of some of the crisis before Ramaphosa took over from President Zuma at that stage, there was the Save South Africa project, and there were different projects and different names, all civil society deeply concerned about the issues that face the country and the citizens of our country, right? And those issues remain, if they have not even worsened, right? What do you think, in terms of coming together? I mean, I think that's admirable, because I would certainly be on side with that, because we all want to live in a country where we can all realize our fullest potential. What I am interested in, and I've seen examples of it even now, is that political parties often appear to be putting political party first and South Africa second. How do you think in connecting with them in that negotiation, right? How do you think they would respond?
So two things on that. Even the statement of intent of the much talked about GNU speaks to the need for a national dialogue.
Yes.
And the president has made that articulation himself. So we don't see these processes as unrelated. It's good to know that the parties themselves are committed to being part of a dialogue. Remember, they can't dialogue with themselves. They must dialogue with citizens, right? And our president himself is committed to a dialogue. And we will interface with them in the early part of the conversations that are starting next week. But I think for us as citizens, perhaps we could look at this differently. In 1994, we did not inherit a democratic infrastructure. The parliament that was in place was designed to undermine democracy and to undermine the voice of the people. The reason our democracy is so resilient, even at such a young age, is because it is communities that had set up a democratic infrastructure, right down to street committee level. And it is communities that gifted our democracy the strength that it seems to have. We are now simply saying, if that is the origin of the strength of our democracy, and we extended it and we went on holiday, at least for the better part of the period since 1994, on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of our democracy, perhaps citizens could remind politicians and parties that unto citizens power must return. so that we do hold them to account better. The parties that are sitting, as I'm talking now about positions, many of them made different promises to the electorate. Take, for instance, the electorate, the supporters of the DA were promised that we will keep the ANC out of power, right? So what is the DA doing now? Protecting the ANC and getting into bed with it. We will hold them accountable. We do not want cadre deployment. What is everybody doing now in the political parties? Drawing up lists to deploy cadres, right? And sitting back as citizens, many people on all sides of this last election are saying, in fact, the most candid person was Gaten McKenzie, who reminded us that the primary purpose of us and all of us, the primary interest is power. We should not fool the citizen. And we are saying, citizens, perhaps we should hit that call, that we should not be conned repeatedly without drawing our leadership closer to the national.
Just a quick one. Was the Jacob Zuma Foundation invited? I don't know if I picked that up. Were they invited or not?
The Jacob Zuma Foundation is not on the list of these foundations, and we shall hear from them further along the line what their position is in respect of.
Okay, just very quickly in 30 seconds, what's the next thing on the agenda?
So we are getting together next Tuesday. In fact, a cohort tomorrow, and then the secretariat next Tuesday. So the first part is to hammer out the structure, because we've made a commitment to reach out to as many corners of our society as possible. And so we are putting together the detail. And there will have been many conversations that have happened. The SACC has had a similar process coming out of the churches. We won't be starting afresh. There are already many declarations made in many corners of our society. How can we then bring them onto the main table of conversation and use them as a foundation for a national pact?
That's where you're going to leave it in. Kosinati Biko, Chief Executive Officer of the Steve Biko Foundation. And to answer one of the callers, no, it's not the National Dialogue Party, but you never know. South Africa is alive with possibilities. This is the National Pulse.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone so you can go fast? Or for many to go together so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Durban is open for business and investment. A large delegation from the United States of America, including captains of industry, business, investors, finances, decision makers, and high-profile leaders will attend the 2024 Resurgence Durban Conference to explore and maximize investment opportunities in Durban. Be part of the Resurgence Durban Conference taking place at the Durban ICC from the 17th to the 21st of July 2024. Durban is forging ahead with its plan of action that is aimed at boosting trade and investment within South Africa, the African continent, and the rest of the world. Businesses must register now to exhibit at the conference. Closing date is the 30th of June 2024. To register for the Resurgence Durban Conference and for more information, visit www.resurgenceconference.org.
Life gets too busy, and SABC Sport gets it. That's why we're bringing you Final Analysis, the sole destination to fill you in on all sport action that goes down every weekend. This is a premium Sunday night wrap-up show, giving match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 9:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
By the way, you have any thoughts on... so I understand that President Ramaphosa's letter as the president of the ANC to the DAs, John Steenhuisen, is in effect like a final demand to say, accept our deal or no deal. And that's why the DA is into a federal executive meeting as we stand, right, as we talk. Further comments we'll take on the issues of non-racialism within the ANC and other political parties, whether there's been a shift away from that. But let's get to some of your comments.
Ashraf, it means that ANC hasn't yet learned its lesson the hard way. By bringing back Zizi Kodwa, you see, you name them back to the parliament. You see, that's by endorsing corruption further and further, Ramaphosa, in your executive committee. Wake up! Oh, you see now. So, what about the ANC followers? What do they see? What do they say when they see these things, these nasty things happening? Thanks.
Okay, there we are. Well, I tell you what, as you may have heard, even the ANC Women's League have complained about Zizi Kodwa. Let's talk about cricket. And remember, I was going to say Bafana. No, the Proteas. They beat Afghanistan this morning in the World Cup finals on Saturday. They will play either India or England. But here's a comment about commentary.
I would like to know why we don't have a ball-by-ball cricket commentary over the radio anymore. Because, people like me who are struggling now, we don't have TV sets. We rely solely on the radio to receive information. So I would like, if you know anything, and explain why it's not done anymore, or maybe you can get someone who, with the knowledge, who will explain to us as to why it's happening, what is happening now, we see. Because we don't have that anymore. And we rely on the radio to receive all that. And currently there is a big cricket tournament going on, and we're missing out. So please, we appreciate if you can help us.
Well, let's hope South Africa doesn't miss out on that tournament. They must win that tournament. We really pray, absolutely. In terms of the answers, I don't know. I mean, this is my return to SAFM in that period that I've been away. My understanding was a shift in terms of policy with Radio 2000 that would carry the ball-by-ball commentary, and I think now they just have reports, I think, and this is a guess, I think it was done at the time because of pressure to increase revenues for the greater SABC, and that's what I think. I don't quite know. I do understand it's a huge managing act between, catering for cricket lovers and providing ball by ball, which can take, in this case, 3 hours, or on the one hand, also ensuring that you can produce and deliver content that would appeal to the masses and therefore would probably be more commercially viable. I love cricket. I hope there's another way you can listen. If you are linked in any way to streaming live, I mean that means Wi-Fi, you can certainly catch that ball by ball on other platforms, including the internet, if it's possible. Okay, but I hear what you're saying. The good news is that South Africa are in the finals. Here's another one on the DA and the ANC.
Afternoon, Ashraf, the listeners. This is Nats Edzibala. I'm not surprised by what is currently happening between ANC and DA. They were never having anything common prior, especially if one considers the other parties that ANC didn't go with, that is EFF and also the NK party. At least they had a lot in common between those parties, but the option that they took, the one that has to do with DA, was never okay from the word go. Nevertheless, I was happy because they're working together and there was somebody who was going to guard them and not to do bad or wrong things. So maybe they should consider it and then maybe go for the parties that have something in common. Thank you.
Okay, got it. I mean, I think there's lots of issues around that, and as you know, that story is developing all the time, isn't it? Let's get the thoughts of we've had a couple of comments on the issue from the former deputy mayor of the eThekwini municipality, Logi Naidu, about the lack of numbers of Indian representation within the ANC and therefore the KwaZulu-Natal provincial government, as well as coloured people, and the broader question about non-racialism within the ANC. Right? So Thabo in Kroonstad, hi.
Good day, Ashraf.
Good day.
Ashraf,
Yeah.
Yes, man. I think your coinage of the question on non-raciality of the ANC is problematic for me because it uses KZN as a basis to call that question, and instead of using the national parliament to check if the ANC has got representation of those races, because in KZN, when the ANC submit its list, it has got principles that it has to adhere to. One of them is this one of non-racialism, that different groups must be represented. And it's a problematic for me because the ANC is the third biggest party in KZN. So the reality of the matter is that nobody anticipated this kind of performance of ANC in KZN. So that's why we've got a problem. If you remove people from the list, you are going to have a case such as the one of Punani in KZN, where the Punani took the ANC to court to say, because the ANC wanted to address the same principles that it has to adhere to. And Punani took the ANC to court and finally subsequently won to say it was not fair, because Punani was, I can't remember on what number was she on the list. And subsequently, the ANC lost that thing. So the ANC cannot venture in that kind of illegality. But it appreciates, if you can look at the national parliament representativity of the ANC, you will see that all these races are represented there. So I just felt that it's unfair to use KZN as a basis to judge the ANC non-raciality.
Well, I mean, I hear you. I mean, remember, the issue wasn't brought up by us. It was brought up by an ANC member, former deputy mayor of the ANC in the Tegwini region, and that is Logie Naidu. So, and we're responding to what he has spoken about and being quoted about extensively. But I get that. Thanks for that. In fact, I mean, the situation may change nationally, but does it change enough? And you know, to the point of what you expect in terms of knocking people off a list? I mean, that's an absolute no question about that. Let's get the news headlines. It's 4:30. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garda, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, President Cyril Ramaphosa has lashed out at the DA, saying that he believes that the party has jeopardized the foundation of setting up the Government of National Unity negotiations. The DA, meanwhile, will be meeting this evening to determine if they'll be accepting the ANC's latest offer. And a study in Britain has found the essays written by artificial intelligence programs and submitted for university exams scored higher marks than those written by genuine students. A full news update coming up at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N3 southbound in Germiston has a stationary vehicle before Geldenhuys Interchange. The N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview is queuing on both routes towards Gululi's Interchange, and Olifantsfontein Road westbound in Midrand has a crash near Lever Road. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pinetown, that's slow moving at Marion Hill Toll Plaza. The N2 southbound is slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 eastbound is queuing at Cliffdale. In Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Havel Drive northbound has a crash reported at Frans Conradi Drive. Veltervreden Drive in Mitchells Plain is closed between Cedar Avenue and Spine Road, and the R302 Wellington Road northbound in Durbanville has a crash reported at Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Okay, so Tumi, as I cross to you, our Minister of Sport.
Yeah.
I mean, just watch what I'm doing here, okay? And you can ask me why.
Why are you taking a video? It's a video of me.
I'm taking assuming a video of you.
Yeah.
Wearing the cricket shirt.
Yes, of course.
Specifically why.
Proudly and loudly Proteas.
Okay, there we are. In case you didn't know, the Proteas are in the final of the Cricket World Cup. I'm going to sing a song about it the whole day. Tell us what else you've got.
Well, we start things off with cricket. We'll touch on the Proteas in a bit, but Cricket South Africa has confirmed the SA Under-19 Women's T20 series against Namibia and the Eastern Storm as they prepare for the second edition of the ICC Under-19 Women's T20 Cricket World Cup in Malaysia and Thailand in early 2025. The SA Under-19 women will take on the two senior sides from from the 1st to the 6th of July, with all matches held at Wilmore Park in Benoni. And this tour will feature 10 T20 matches, with South Africa playing 7 games against their provincial counterparts and the touring Namibian national team. Then in the previous hour, I did promise our cricket fans some great news. Well, the DP World Wanderers Stadium will host a fan park on Saturday for the T20 World Cup final, all for free, as we know. And as Ashraf did allude to the fact that the Proteas are in the final, and it can only make sense that we all come together and support them. And just to talk a bit more about this, I am joined on the line by the Chief Executive of DP World Wanderers, Jono Leaf-Wright. Jono, a very good afternoon to you. It's always great chatting to you, but I must say, nothing but excitement for the Proteas.
Yeah, absolutely, Tims, and a warm welcome to you and your listeners. What a fantastic day for South African sports, for South African cricket, and us as a country. A day to certainly celebrate. I think there are a lot of people that fell asleep on at work, having got up at 2:30, but we're all wearing our Protea shirts proudly, and certainly very excited for the final tomorrow.
Absolutely. I mean, let's talk a bit more about the great news in terms of the fan park. We do know that, yes, it's happening on Saturday for the final. And do fans need to get tickets even though it's for free?
No, Tim, they can arrive at the stadium. Gates open at 3:30. We've decided with Cricket South Africa that there'll be no charge. And obviously we're going to jam-pack it with a fan-centric fun day out for families and friends to come and watch the Proteas take on whoever wins this afternoon between India and England. And obviously, as you know, at the DP World Wanderers, it's always a family occasion, and there'll be DJs, jumping castles, face painters, and a real family day out where we all get to celebrate being proudly South African and get to hopefully edge our Proteas over the line as they beat one of these, either India or England, in the final.
Yeah, and what time will the gates open?
Gates open at 3:30. Match starts at 4:30. And as I mentioned, it is free. We do have a capacity of max 5,000. So first come, first serve. So we urge everyone to get down nice and early and make sure that they don't lose out on what will certainly be a very special day.
Well, there you have it, a fan park on Saturday. Jono, just before I let you go, who's your money on, England or India today?
My money's on India, and I actually want India to play because I've always said pressure's a privilege, and I want the final against India in the West Indies and the Proteas to lift that World Cup trophy.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on Saturday for the final.
Thank you very much, and let's come down and support our Proteas.
Alrighty, that is Jono Leaf-Wright, the Chief Executive of DP World Wanderers. Ashraf, we're going to Wanderers, right, on Saturday?
Am I going as well?
We have to go.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I want to be on the... You know, when you talk about centre court, in this case, I want to be on the pitch, but I'm clearly that's not going to happen, yeah.
Well, there will be a big screen, so just make sure you go to the Wanderers and support the
My
Proteas.
only question is, why only 5,000 fans? I mean, clearly...
That's the capacity of the stadium.
No, it can't be the whole Wanderers. I mean, that's the...
Listen, we don't want like a stampede or anything.
No, I want 30,000 people at the stadium. Really. That's what I want.
Well, we move on to athletics. Renowned middle distance coach Samuel Sepeng is eagerly anticipating his first Olympic Games as a coach, joining his brother Ezekiel in Paris next month. Samuel will assist Ezekiel in coaching the middle distance athletes at the global sporting event, which is scheduled to run from the 27th of July to the 11th of August. Ezekiel, who is the 1996 800-meter silver medalist and Athletics South Africa athlete high performance manager, will lead the team alongside his younger brother. With that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I am Dumin Kapele.
I'm looking forward to that. And of course, I mean, the other game starts now, right? It's the England-India game.
Yes, it's
Just
actually
now. Okay.
delayed because of rain. The toss has been delayed because of rain, but we'll definitely keep you up to date with what's happening there.
And by the way, I have to just tell you very quickly, when there's rain, you know, there's Duckworth Lewis that kicks in, right? So I believe he died today. The guy who conceptualized the idea of Duckworth Lewis. Whether he's Duckworth or Lewis, I don't know. But anyway, we can check up on it.
Interesting.
Let me check up on it. I think he died today, by the way, at the age of 85, yeah.
Amidst misinformation and disinformation, where can we find reliable news? Turn to radio, your trusted source for truthful updates. For over 3 decades, we've upheld integrity as a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct. Count on us for news you can trust. Say no to fake news. Radio, keeping it real since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters. Tune in, trust, and stay informed.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the facts and figures with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good chatting to you as always. Let's talk about what you got: growth point numbers and also numbers for RMB holdings.
Afternoon to Ashraf and to your listeners. Yes, starting with Growth Point. That is their 9-month trading update. Remember that guys have got exposure here and also internationally. They're covering office, industrial, retail, and student accommodation. I mean, the owners of the likes of the Brooklyn Mall, Westville Mall, you know, they've got the JV with the PIC at VNA Waterfall. And when you look at their SA portfolio, vacancies improved by 12.3%, currently sitting at 8.5%. And the renewal rental growth rate improved by 51%, currently sitting at negative 6.3%, and the average lease period on renewals is now slightly longer than the 3.5 years, now at 3.7 years, and the income that they can distribute per share expected to fall by 12%, and that was due to the negative impact of high interest rates and also delays obtaining Competition Commission approval and rates clearance certificates, as well as delays when it comes to the deed office, unfortunately is affecting the rate of their disposals negatively. So, and RMB, these are the part owners of the Landwood Bridge Mall, the Mall of Africa, etc. Revenue dropped by more than 100%. Same applies to profits and headline earnings per share, with their dividends down almost 83%, and the investment income dropped by 69%. And unfortunately, the fundamentals of the SA property market have been severely impacted over the last years. COVID-19 exerted pressure on retail rentals, and that led to a significant decline in office occupancy as well, and the subsequent increase in interest rates further strained the sector. And against the backdrop of low economic growth, high unemployment, peaking interest rates and inflation rates, the demand for retail, office and commercial property remains subdued.
Right, and then you, of course, as always, local and global markets.
Ashraf, expectations of the future path when it comes to U.S. interest rates has been a major driving force when it comes to the foreign exchange market, with the Fed officials calling for more data showing a slowing when it comes to inflation before agreeing to cut interest rates. Hence, tomorrow's inflation data is in the spotlight, as this is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge and should show whether the slowing down in inflation is continuing or not. And traders remained largely biased towards the dollar, and that's in anticipation of that key U.S. inflation data. We've seen also treasury yields ticking up higher as investors face the global inflation worries, and there's also that U.S. presidential debate later in the session that is between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and that's also keeping investors on the edge, and market participants still watching with keen interest the formation of our GNU cabinet. And supply disruptions risk from rising geopolitical tensions in the Middle East helped to counter demand fears after we've seen a surprise increase when it comes to the U.S. crude stockpiles. Brent crude is up 1% at $85 a barrel, and after falling to a 2-week session in the previous session, the yellow metal is regaining its shine, while traders are still waiting for that insight when it comes to how soon the U.S. will cut interest rates. Gold is up 1.3% at $2,326. Platinum down 1.7% at $997. The CAC is down 0.4%, FTSE down 0.1%, but the DAX is up 0.6%, with the Dow and S&P up 0.1%. The JSE is flat, with our resources up 1.7%, industrials up 0.3%, but our financials are down a whopping 1.4%, and the rand is working to just over 1% against the major currencies. Is now trading 18.43 to the US dollar, 23.33 to the pound, and 19.75 to the euro.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your time. We'll chat again tomorrow, Friday, yeah?
Pleasure.
Perfect. There we are. Mark, we're Masilela, talking numbers and finance as he does every day around this time. I'll take your calls. I want to do that. We'll certainly talk about further issues on non-racialism. There's also that thought, and we'll cover that after 5 o'clock, of a final letter by the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa to the DA leader after he responded to their meeting and the proposals put on the table on the formation of the GNU executive. Okay, so my understanding is it regards positions, and they appear to be further apart than they've been for a good number of weeks. In fact, what does this all mean for the government of national unity? And clearly that's why we're not having what we were waiting for, which is the announcement of the cabinet. I understand earlier on that confirmation that the DA, Federal Executive, FedEx, had either gone into a meeting or they are going into a meeting now to discuss their response to the ANC's response to their response. Right, let's we're going to have an update on what's going on in Kenya as well just now. Let's get further thoughts on non-racialism with Princess in Joburg. Hi, Princess, what's your point?
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good indeed. I'm glad that you called in. Go ahead.
Thank you. So you know what I want to retaliate is firstly that the ANC is the most non-racial organization. There's no organization with such a dynamic racial character like the ANC. Starting from the times of struggle, you remember Joslovo, Rahima Musa, Yusuf Dadu, recently Jesse Duarte, and even in the current structure now, you see leaders, Barbara Creasy, you have many colored leaders, white leaders, Indian leaders, and also from all demographics that represents our African society. But beyond even non-racialism, it's the most inclusive organization that speaks against tribalism, regionalism, sexism, and has included, if you look at its members of parliament now, you have a popular leader of the LGBT community, Steve Litsike. You have from the disability, Megan Adonis Chauke. All those are only found in the ANC. I know, and I'm speaking because I've worked closely on the question being discussed. I also know that they've got a desk, what they call mobilization of national groups. Again, the only political party that has that, it's led by a comrade Days from Northern Cape. Okay. So you can see that it's the only party that has put up such structures, LGBT.
Okay, I've heard you. I think you've made your point. I've heard you. Thank you for that. I think the point is not about what the ANC has been all the years. There's a sense that they're losing grip of that non-racial character. That doesn't mean they're still not the most non-racial of all, but by their own lofty standards, they may be slipping up. Now, that's not what I'm saying. That's what some people within the ANC are saying. We'll talk to Stephen Friedman, by the way, about that just after 5 o'clock. Do not miss that. Colin in Cape Town, let's talk cricket.
Cricket, Ashraf, and I'm so glad they in the final. Now, you know, I've been following this cricket and following the radio and everything. You know, when the team was announced to go overseas and all that stuff, there was such a controversy. You know, the wrong team, Timber's not there, and so and so. And some of the listeners even phone in, they're not going to even listen and watch cricket or something like that. I just like to tell those people, get behind the boys, man. Get behind.
Did you watch the game at 2:30 this morning?
Yeah, you watched it.
I did, yes.
Yes, but, man. Asher.
No, if you didn't watch it, then I can't talk to you. You must watch it live.
Asher, yeah. I'm 77 years old. Once I sleep like a baby, man.
Well, there you are. Some may say the Proteas have been sleeping for a long time, but they're waking up now. So I'm
yes,
glad.
But I'll definitely watch. And tell those negative people, man, that say the team is too white when they were picked. Get behind the boys, man.
All right, you've just told them, Colin. You've just told them. Thank you. Thank you for that, again, opinions, diverse. Colin has his thoughts. 77, that's what he says. But the game is at 4:30 on Saturday afternoon. I think we have another call we're going to take. Is it Benny in Pretoria? No, it's not Benny in Pretoria. There's some voice notes we'll get you. And I think there's been ongoing issues about the problems we're facing.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and SFM listeners. My observation is that this is the beginning of chaos, the beginning of uncertainties in many of South Africans, particularly most of the public servants who were appointed or who are appointed at a senior level, at higher positions. Because in any department where the DA is going to be in charge, it's going to be chaos. So this is the beginning of big problems for our country, unfortunately. Slilo Polokwane.
Okay, Slano, that's your thoughts, that's your point. Clearly others don't have the same views, but that's how I go.
Afternoon, Ashraf, the listeners. This is Nats Etzibala. I'm not surprised by what is currently happening between ANC and DA. They were never having anything common prior, especially if one considers the other parties that ANC didn't go with, that is EFF and also the NK party. At least they had a lot in common between those parties, but the option that they took, the one that has to do with DA, was never okay from the word go. Nevertheless, I was happy because they were working together and there was somebody who was going to guard them not to do bad or wrong things. So maybe they should reconsider it and then maybe go for the parties that have something in common. Thank you.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, different parties are saying different things, and I don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, seriously, and I think we all really don't know. So it's certainly not a case of one party being tardy about it. It's a case of what happens next, right? Here's another.
Good afternoon, Bishop Makwana from Luwakhumi Zone F. Ashraf, I'm afraid that if the DA, ANC do not find each other in this instance, there will be many collapse, including provinces, which have to now start afresh. Because as I know DA, if nationally they collapse, it means they will recall everyone. Then go to the opposition benches. That's what I'm saying. They need to find each other. Because the mistake the ANC made is to try to give DA trade and industry. Those should have not even been negotiated. Trade and industry, finance, defense, deco, minerals and energy. Those must remain in the hands of the ANC. They should have offered DA every other position other than that. But they can't give DA tourism. They wouldn't accept it.
Well, I mean, that's the point, isn't it? What for you in your negotiation between two parties, what will appeal to another party to join in, to make it attractive to them, may not be what you think. And the DA clearly wants what they think is best for them. The ANC clearly wants to hold on to the crown jewels. I mean, work it out. Clearly, that's where the friction lies. So I get that. But then what is acceptable to the DA? What is acceptable to the ANC? We're going to talk about Kenya right after this.
So, a lady from Air Officini just turned 55, and although I'm still a spring chicken, there's a part of me that envies her, especially since she now qualifies for a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account with capital guaranteed. Talk about FOMI, huh, voice man?
If you mean FOMO, then definitely, boss man. And she can earn up to 12.65% interest. Anyone over 55 can open theirs via the Nedbank Money app. Visit our website for more information. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credits provider. T's and C's apply.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So yesterday we spoke about, in fact, we've been talking about Kenya all week, right? And the protests that have taken place, many amongst young Kenyans, against a bill, a finance 2024 bill that the president, William Ruto, was supposed to have signed into law because of massive protests. There's also been deaths, I'm afraid, sadly so. At some stage yesterday, things turned around. We also chatted to a guest that we had in terms of people who've been eyewitnesses to what's happened there. So we've got one of them again today. That's Miss Ray DJ, right? And that's a Twitter account. So Miss Ray DJ, hi once again. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good to talk to you. Now, I know yesterday you protested in Nairobi, yesterday and the day before, and you're back on the streets again today, right?
Yes, I was for a bit back on the streets today.
Okay.
Earlier today, yeah.
So I'll tell you what, I'm just going to go back to the announcement made by the president of Kenya, William Ruto. This is after massive protests, and we know that they had escalated to a level of huge problems because there were responses from government and people having died as well. And this is what the president said.
Because I run a government, but I also lead people. And the people have spoken. I am grateful to all the members of the National Assembly who voted yesterday affirmatively for the Finance Bill 2024 as amended on the floor of the House to incorporate the views generated through public participation. And following the passage of the bill, the country witnessed widespread expression of dissatisfaction with the bill as passed, regrettably resulting in the loss of life, destruction of property, and disintegration of constitutional institutions. On my own behalf, and on behalf of these members and many other Kenyans, I send my condolences to the families of those who lost their loved ones in this very unfortunate manner. Consequently, having reflected on the continuing conversation around the content of the Finance Bill 2024, and listening keenly to the people of Kenya who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn, and I have agreed with these members that becomes our collective position.
Okay, so that's the Kenyan president. Ms. Ray DJ, why, I mean, he did not sign. He said that bill effectively being thrown out. Why are you still protesting?
Because according to our constitution, the Kenyan Constitution 2010, the President of the Republic of Kenya does not have powers to withdraw bills, right? And unless we convene a special parliament, Parliament is currently in recess for the next days until they come back on July 22nd, I think, 23rd July. And so the only one who has power to do that is the person who, the MP who brought this bill to Parliament, right? And for the bill to actually be withdrawn, they need to do these processes that are laid down in our Constitution, Article 115, 1B. And so the reason that we were protesting today was those two ways. Number one, to mourn the lives of the people that have been lost in the first protest, the last two protests, and also to reiterate that we do want that finance bill gone. And so this is why we're on the streets today.
All right, so you're saying that his position to say he will not sign it is not enough because, in fact, he doesn't have the power to halt it. But the fact that he says he won't sign it, isn't that a type of halting of the bill anyway?
I am not a lawmaker, so I'm not really sure. However, the feeling of the people is that we don't need any more promises because we have had many broken promises before. And so we need to follow the letter of the law so that we can have this bill properly withdrawn. If that's not done, then this bill becomes law on the 11th of July. And so this is the problem that you're facing.
Okay, so it has to be done like imminently, right? Because you've got 11 or 12 days, or maybe slightly more to do that. What for you has been the big lesson of the protests that have taken place? And I know people have lost their lives, but there's also been huge pressure on government, and at least we know, well, you know that the bill was not signed yesterday. So what has been the big lesson coming out of that?
I think for us the big lesson is that for the first time ever, a lot of Kenyans have been united outside tribal lines, because we have this problem in Kenya around tribalism. And to see that every people rise around the country to fight for what is right, to fight for our rights, it's a big lesson for us. And another lesson is that we have to read our constitutions as citizens of this country. We have to read our constitution and understand it. And once we know what our constitution, we know what rights our constitution gives us, then we will be at a better place to call out and ask for accountability, especially when things like this happen.
Okay.
The problem with this bill was not that people do not want to pay tax. We want to pay taxes, but we do not want to be overtaxed when there are expenditures that don't make sense, especially in the legislative.
Okay, and I think that is understandable. Yeah, that's where we're going to leave it. Miss Ray DJ. You can follow actually Miss Ray DJ on Instagram. Miss Ray DJ _ I understand, one of the protesters, one of the activists in Nairobi who've been fiercely opposing that finance bill that was then halted yesterday, so we think, right? Before we get to news, make a note of this. Attention, tourism entrepreneurs, right? Now, your success starts here. The Tourism Equity Fund is your gateway to growth. Whether you're looking to expand or to innovate, you can call SEFA, which is SEFA, SEFA, at 012-748-9600, or visit the website, that is sefa.org.za. SEFA is a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. It's
Ramaphosa lashes out at the DA and findings of study into use of ChatGPT. Good day to you. President Cyril Ramaphosa has lashed out at the DA, saying he believes the party has jeopardized the foundation of a setting up of a government of national unity. He made the comments in a letter which he penned to the DA leader John Steenhuisen, dated the 25th of June 2024. The letter comes amid a stalemate between the DA and the ANC on the trade and industry portfolio. Sabakhle Mota reports.
Ramaphosa has accused the DA of shifting the goalposts in his negotiations with the ANC. The ANC president says that he has been taken aback by how the DA now wants 2 more portfolios to bring the party's cabinet positions to 8. This is as the ANC has allegedly withdrawn its trade and industry portfolio to the DA. Ramaphosa says that the DA has been disruptive and uncooperative in its negotiations, unlike other parties. He adds that the ANC is unable to accede to the DA's latest demands, as it is continuously changing the interpretation of the statement of intent. Ramaphosa is expected to conclude negotiations this week, along with other political parties which have signed the statement of intent.
Meanwhile, the DA will be meeting this evening to determine if they will be accepting the ANC's latest offer. This after the ANC reneged on its offer of the trade and industry portfolio. Sebakhle Mota reports again.
The Democratic Alliance, which is set to sit this evening, is apparently unhappy with the withdrawal of the Department of Trade and Industry portfolio, which the ANC had offered along with 5 others, which include Home Affairs, Basic Education and Communication, amongst others. As it stands, it seems the fate of the DA participating in the government of national unity rests on the FedEx meeting this evening. The meeting decides whether to accept the ANC's latest offer or not. I am Sebakhle Mota in Johannesburg.
3 men have been shot dead at Hibadine on the KwaZulu-Natal south coast. Police spokesperson Jane Naika says the 3 motorists were killed execution style.
Police at Hibadine are probing a triple murder at Mtoluma. A shooting occurred at Mtoluma which claimed the lives of 3 motorists who were killed execution style. It is believed that the driver and his 2 passengers had just left the local court and were about to enter the main road when they were cornered by the suspects who were traveling in 2 vehicles. The suspects opened fire on the vehicle, killing all 3 occupants instantly before fleeing the scene. It is believed that the deceased were also robbed of their firearms. The motive for the attack remains unclear at this time, and detectives at Hibadine are probing the triple murder.
The judgment in the Life Isidameni inquest will be handed down on the 10th of July by the High Court in Pretoria. The judgment was meant to be delivered tomorrow, however the matter was rescheduled. This follows a tragic incident where more than 100 people, mental health patients in fact, lost their lives in 2016. 144 mental health care users were relocated from Life Isidameni facilities in 2015 and 2016 to ill-prepared NGOs. Lorata Makola has the story.
8 years later, the judgment into the inquest into the deaths of Life Isidameni patients who died during the tragedy is yet to be delivered. The inquiry began virtually in 2021. Judge Munwat Efu is due to recommend to the NPA whether any health officials should be charged with culpable homicide for their involvement in the tragic deaths. Section 27 has asked the inquest to recommend that former Gauteng Health MEC Kedani Mahlangu be criminally charged for the deaths of the patients. For SABC News, I'm Lerato Makula in Johannesburg.
A study in the UK has found essays written by artificial intelligence programs and are being submitted for university exams scored higher marks than those written by genuine human students. The BBC's Kate McGough has more.
Researchers at the University of Reading created 33 fictitious students and used the AI tool ChatGPT to generate answers for the computer-based exam modules of an undergraduate psychology degree. In the limited study published in the journal PLOS ONE, the AI exam answers and essays were submitted without the knowledge of those marking them. Nearly all of the fake papers didn't raise any concerns with the markers. On average, the AI students achieved half a grade boundary higher than their real-life counterparts. The researchers say the findings should provide a wake-up call to educators.
Top story, President Ramaphosa's lashed out at the DA saying he believes the party's jeopardized the foundation of the setting up of a government of national unity. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goes.
Coming up in your sports, Morocco Gallants have confirmed the purchase of Morocco Swallows and a fan park at Wanderers Stadium for T20 World Cup final. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound has a crash before Woodmead Drive. In Midrand, Olifantsfontein Road westbound has a crash near Lever Road, and the N1 southbound has a stationary vehicle before New Road. Then there's the N40 northbound in Pretoria, which has delays towards the R101 interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound in Amanzimtoti is slow moving on Twinney Hill. The N3 eastbound in Pinetown is slow moving at Marion Hill Toll Plaza. On the N2, there's roadworks with stop-go controls at Mkuzi. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before the M25 Commercial Highway, and the N3 eastbound has a stationary truck reported at Cliffdale. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is slow moving towards Bunga Avenue exit. Victoria Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock. Broadway Boulevard eastbound in Strand is queuing towards Broadlands Road, and Lesbeck Parkway outbound is slow moving towards Observatory. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of capture will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
Am I left or right-brained? I'm leaning right. Right? However, I do have some left-brain tendencies. Perhaps I'm left-brained with right-brain tendencies. Am I overthinking this? I don't want to be caught underthinking it. Or maybe I'm overthinking about underthinking the overthinking. Which am I?
At RMB, the simple answer is both. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity that doesn't make you choose, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Lights, camera, scalpel. Every second counts, and every cut, every thought, every action is critical. Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
So here's a question. Are you a youth entrepreneur looking to get funding? SEFA provides opportunities for entrepreneurs through the Youth Challenge Fund. Your success starts here. So get to the website, which is SEFA, which is spelled SEFA, sefa.org.za, and then search YCF, right? That would be the Youth Entrepreneurs Fund. Search for YCF. SEFA is a registered credit provider. Terms and conditions apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So what for you drives the National Pulse today? This earlier on when we started the show, it is very much the cricket team in the finals now of the Cricket World Cup, and that's just fabulous. But, you know, that National Pulse changes into different directions as the show changes, and we reflect all of it. It moved from the issues of maybe the lack of non-racialism currently reflected in KZN politics, the ANC KZN politics in particular. And then also now there's this talk of, besides what's happening in Kenya, that the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, has written a letter to the leader of the DA, John Steenhuisen, and it's like a final letter of demand, accept or not accept the conditions. We'll talk about that, the ANC DA issue and the GNU coming up pretty shortly. But let's talk about the first issue, the issue of the non-racial character of the ANC and maybe other political parties too, with Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, who is a political analyst from the University of the Western Cape. Dr. Vilakazi, you're live at the National Pulse. Hi.
Good afternoon. How are you? And good afternoon to listeners at home as well.
Thank you. Pretty well. Thank you for giving off your time, right? So earlier on, we chatted to Logi Naidu. Now, he's the former deputy mayor of the eThekwini municipality. He was there for a while back, in fact. But he made the point about the lack of particular Indian and coloured representation in the newly constituted KZN provincial government, and I asked him whether he spoke about it, because he has, and therefore what has been the response from his own party, the African National Congress, and he said this.
No, the point I did raise was, notwithstanding all of the results, we're 30 years into our democracy, and I'm a long-standing member of the ANC, and we've always subscribed to the principles of a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa. And it is in that context I raised the issue so that we can bring about the necessary changes and ensure that our, governance, our legislatures, our spheres of government, rather, reflect the demographics of the country. So, this is what I've raised. Mm-hmm. I must put into context the way I have raised the matter. For me, it's I think that if you take KZN, the province has a strong presence of the Indian, English, and Zulu communities. That's the makeup. If you take the Western Cape, I see that, certainly there's a sizable coloured community as such. So, and I think that all political parties have a responsibility to ensure that on their lists of people going into the governing structures reflect the demographics of the country.
Okay, they all should reflect the democratic structures of the country, or the demographics of the country. Interesting point made by Logi Naidu, former deputy mayor of the eThekwini municipality. Right. So let's get the thoughts then of Dr. Vilakazi. You've heard that. What do you make of it? You agree or not?
I agree with the fact that I think our political texture in terms of leadership, in terms of governance, has got to represent who we are as a nation in terms of our demographics, racially, culturally, and otherwise. Otherwise then there's always going to be this something that is missing. It's just in terms of responding around service delivery, but it's just in terms of the narrative as well, and centering those things that matter to the varied demographics that we are as South Africa. So I agree to that extent. Whether that is something that is seeing on the ground, I think it's a different story. Especially if you look at KwaZulu-Natal. KwaZulu-Natal has got a predominantly, Black African population, followed by what you call an Indian population. But in the current legislature that has just come into power, just been sworn in, I mean, there's very, very little representation of people of other races. We're seeing still being a predominantly Black African, representation. And there's a dynamic there. There's a story behind that. One of it is also the kinds of coalitions that we've been seeing between what I would say the Democratic Alliance and the Inkatha Freedom Party, but also a couple of years back between the Democratic Alliance and the Minority Front. And I'm not sure if, South Africans will probably remember the story. What actually happened, the DA had a very particular coalition with the Minority Front at a certain point, which necessitated actual accessibility, for instance, of the DA into places like Phoenix, Chatsworth, and so on, comparatively to other places like Kwamashu or Mlazi, and so on. So what that has done is that it has skewed the voter towards a particular narrative to say certain political parties stand for certain bodies and for certain races and for certain cultures. On the other hand, on the other side, you saw Inkatha Freedom Party being largely associated with your Zulu African, voter or citizen in KwaZulu-Natal. And that has, in KwaZulu-Natal in particular, and I suppose the Western Cape, it has always sort of found itself leaning towards, sadly so, towards the politics of the margin, where you are sort of aligning.
All right, let me, if I can come in there then, so with regards to what was said, I remember it was brought up from an ANC insider in the first instant, right? And you think, I mean, you'd agree it's largely true, but is it a reflection of apathy from different ethnic groups, for want of a better word, apathy in terms of wanting to be part of formal political structures, or is it apathy from political structures who really see no need to be as broad as they once were?
I'll tell you an anecdote. I once had a conversation with a politician whose name I'm not going to mention, within the ANC, to ask exactly that question. Why is it that, for instance, you don't see a larger strata of Indian participation within the ANC? And the answer was, no, but the ANC does go and mobilize within these communities. They only probably tend to turn up when there's business opportunities and tenders. When it comes to participating politically, they don't seem to have that particular interest, which may be that in terms of voter interest within political parties, you find the voter who is a political activist, but you also find a voter that is coming there as a business, social, like capitalist, for lack of a better word, who is involved for certain reasons to say, I want to give service through my political party as a business person. And that response told me that perhaps the reason why you can't see maybe other people of color, except like Africans, in the front line of the executive, for instance, like in the legislature, is because they're actually activating themselves elsewhere differently. Maybe if we actually zone into the business sector and see who are actually members of the ANC or Inkatha Freedom Party and so on, who are leading businesses that are contributing to the tender system, service delivery, that could tell us a different picture. And maybe that is where they are. Maybe that is where they are actually located. And do we see that as political activation or not? I think it's the question.
And I mean, here's another thing. There's it was brought up by a caller earlier on, said that, referring to the same issue, said, well, that's why I hope Gayton McKenzie does things well for the Patriotic Alliance. Meaning, and here's the point, that you'd increasingly get political parties that would pander down a narrow ethnic or tribal ethnicity-based party. So, therefore, the Gayton McKenzie example. I mean, is that true? Because, one may think similarly, you had the Freedom Front Plus, as well as now has been spoken about the rise of MK, where John Klope himself has said that, I'm part of this party because I associate with its focus on, and I'm paraphrasing, sort of ethnic Zulu culture, and that's what I embrace myself in. Do we see that happening across the board?
We are. To be honest with you, we are seeing it. And I think what we are trying to get to the bottom of it is whether that is necessitated and activated by tribalist thinking, or is it just a pattern of who we are in terms of demographics. I think that's the kind of answer we need to see. But we tend to see that Patriotic Alliance, for instance, will have a voter that is largely, colored population. And if you see where they are getting voting, the IFP, the same, is largely in KwaZulu-Natal. The vote of the IFP is largely, a Zulu person. I was talking to one colleague today to say, is it true the MK party, for instance, people are saying it has been voted by people who are tribalistic and Zulu by nature. And I was contesting that. But someone pointed me to saying, but if you look at, for instance, in Mpumalanga, even if you get out of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, people who actually voted MK, if you were to look at that, probably people in the hostels who come from KwaZulu-Natal but are there by migration for labor purposes and so on. So it's something that I think we need to get to the bottom of, whether people are voting in those ways because of trust, because of a sense of belonging, because of a particular value system that attracts them to certain bodies, to certain politicians, to a particular political culture. And I think it tells us about the kind of political culture that we have as a nation. Has our culture actually really diversified in such a manner that a Zulu person can freely feel comfortable in the DA? A black person can do the same and say, I am home politically, regardless of my skin color, regardless of whether I'm Zulu or Xhosa or Pedi or Shangaan or Afrikaans. So that's that. So we still tend to psychologically sort of be aligned and drawn to those kinds of holes and corners, which is sad. So
lastly, if we upscale the conversation from provincial to national, right, does it matter or is it important that let's say the cabinet, for example, would begin to reflect the demographics of our country? And I look at the example of, say, the United Kingdom, where increasingly immigrants now play a very prominent role. The mayor of London comes from a Pakistani background. The current Prime Minister, he may even be sacked in a couple of weeks' time, you never know, comes from an Indian background. Whether they're good leaders or not is not the issue. The point is there's a sense of diversity. Is that important in South Africa, or is that less important? That it's more important to reflect the majority, and the majority do not come from those communities?
To be honest with you, it's actually an imperative. I think that if we really mean what we're saying by unity in diversity, we cannot then, for instance, we can't speak left and walk right. So if we're saying that we are for unity in diversity, everything we do in terms of governance has got to reflect that. And in fact, what it does, for me, it fast-tracks a conversation that we need to be having together at the same table. Because if you consistently have people of certain bodies and certain colors and certain cultures and traditions at the exclusion of others, you are leaving them out of the conversation. So I think that we need to trust each other more and actually realize who we are. We just need to remember that we are a particular type of a people in South Africa. Our demographics are different than elsewhere on the African continent. If you just look at African continent, we are so diverse culturally, racially, and otherwise. But there's so much unity in that diversity. There's so much creativity in that diversity that you're not tapping into. And I think that we need to probably take that jump, right, somehow. And the voter in the 2024 election has shown us that.
Okay, that's a nice way to end it. Take that jump. Probably is what was part of the conversations around 1990 when the country changed, and you had the ANC and the other parties, and you had the nationalist parties. Like, come on, take that jump. Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, thanks for your thought-provoking conversation. We'll have it up as a podcast as well pretty soon. In fact, Dr. Vilakazi is a political analyst from the University of the Western Cape. Right, what do you make of that? Take that jump. Well, I wonder who's jumping between the ANC and the DA and all the other political parties that make up the government of national unity. We'll talk about latest developments there right after this.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, so we spoke about it earlier on, that there's been some issues and maybe, well, in fact, the one story was it's imminent, the announcement will happen of the naming of cabinet, right? Then we chatted to Mzwai Mbeje, the SABC News political editor, earlier on, and then he alluded to some problems that are surfacing and that the DA itself is going into a FedEx meeting. We then find later on there's been a leaked letter from the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa to the DA leader John Steenhuisen. And well, I'll tell you what, that letter has been called a final demand. Not my words, not his words either, but that's how it's been put together. Let's try and understand what's really happening with Sibatle Mota, who's an SABC News journalist. Sibatle, good chatting to you. You're live on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right, it's a pleasure. Okay, so what do we have? Do we have the naming of the cabinet, or do we have, are we closer to government of disunity rather than unity?
I think, as you rightly put it, it seems like we are only headed for a government of disunity. I mean, as things stand, Ashraf, you saw, the letter that you've been talking about, a very stern and a very scathing letter that President Cyril Ramaphosa has written to John Steenhuisen, saying that the negotiations with the DA have been uncooperative and they seem to be playing to the gallery when they write these correspondences between the ANC and the DA. So basically what we understand right now is that the DA has a meeting, is meeting its FedEx today, just to discuss the latest offer from the ANC. Initially, we saw one of the leaked letters where Helen Zilla made the party's demands known of 11 ministerial positions as well as deputy ministerial positions. But then that was then scaled down a bit, where the ANC offered the DA 6 ministerial positions, which they accepted. But then it's reported that the ANC now has retracted one of those cabinet positions, which is the trade and industry. And this is where the stalemate is actually at between the DA and the ANC.
So, do we understand why they offered the position of trade and industry, a key ministry, I would think, and then withdrew that offer?
Reports right now have just been just saying that the only thing that they know, or the only thing rather the ANC has done is just withdraw that key position and replacing it with tourism, which obviously has left some sort of bitter taste in the DA's mouth, which is now leading up to this FedEx meeting that is expected to take place. So I think information is slowly gonna unravel, and as you know, we've been on standby this entire week for this imminent cabinet announcement that we've been waiting for. But I think with the meeting of the FedEx today, by tomorrow we should have some sort of way forward, or even by tonight, to say, is the DA gonna stay in this GNU or is it jumping ship?
Just give us further details about the content of the letter, right, from President of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa.
Yes.
So, and maybe just the first point, in the letter, does he give a final notice, if I can call it that, to the DA to say accept these terms, or what? And if so, what are those terms?
Everything is very subtle, but it's very stern as well. I think what I took out from the letter is Ramaphosa just saying that they are in consultation with other political parties. So for me, it gave me a sense to say that the DA is not the only political party that the ANC is negotiating with, and it shouldn't expect all these positions that it's demanding. But he was very, very, very stern in his letter. Saying that they are disruptive and uncooperative. And the subject of the letter is saying that this is Ramaphosa's final letter to the DA. So also, it raised a question for me: is the ANC possibly even meeting with the EFF and the NK party, which it had initially sort of kind of closed the door to those negotiations? So I think he's been very, very firm and saying it's either you take this offer or you leave it. So I don't know what may happen this evening at the FedEx meeting. Only time will tell.
Okay, and I've had a quick scan of the letter. I haven't gone through every single word. Does he specify the number of positions up for offer to the DA and what they are, or not?
No, he doesn't. In actual fact, there is a letter that was written by ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula to the DA saying that, they've offered them these 6 ministerial positions, on top of the Deputy Speaker of Parliament and some Deputy Minister positions, which initially reported that they had accepted. The only issue is just this trade and industry post that was withdrawn. So, what the ANC is offering the DA was only penned in Fikile Mbalula's letter to John.
Okay. Now, the show is called The National Pulse. People's blood pressure is rising. There's we just don't know which way to go. When Ramaphosa, ANC President Ramaphosa, talks about you being disruptive and uncooperative, that's his allegation to the ANC, to the DA, right? But some may say, the DA may well accuse the ANC themselves of shifting the goalposts. Who's right and wrong in this?
Ashraf, I think both parties are negotiating rather very tough positions, or they are in very tough positions rather, because as you know, this is the first time in 30 years that we have anything of the sort happening, with the government of national unity bringing in all these parties. So I think both parties are trying to get the best out of the situation. They're trying to negotiate, obviously, for their parties and for the interests of South Africans. So I think both parties are in a tough position to make this government of national unity work.
All right, lastly, we're on to news time, so very quickly, do you think that the GNU as we know it will actually happen, or would we actually go to what I said earlier, a government of disunity?
As things stand, I just want to say, I'm hoping there's a compromise that could be reached, because the country has been expecting this announcement of the cabinet. But my fingers are still crossed. I'm still hopeful, so I'm hoping that some compromise could be reached with these negotiations.
Okay, much appreciate your time, Sibatle Mota, the SABC News journalist. Government of national unity to government of national disunity. Which one is it? And then who's waiting in the wings? And what about the meeting between the DA meeting? And where are the ANC talking to each other today? And what are they talking about? And what about the MK party and the EFF and the others? Certainly Gaten McKenzie has said a lot regarding the Patriotic Alliance, and he said pretty nasty words about, the DA, as you would know. Let's get the news headlines now. It's 5:30 as Greco's.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Survivors of the collapsed building tragedy in George in the Western Cape say their lives have gotten worse since the incident. President Ramaphosa's lashed out to the DA, saying he believes the party has jeopardized the foundation of the setting up of a government of national unity. And a BBC investigation has tracked down a smuggler who organized a small boat crossing to the UK in which 5 people died. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
So one of the biggest clubs in South African football historically.
Sure.
Kaizer Chiefs. They came after Orlando Pirates, but I think Pirates and Morocco Swallows, if I can understand, legacy-wise are like top class.
That was like the original.
What's happened to Morocco Swallows?
Well, Marumo Gallants have confirmed the purchase of Morocco Swallows with immediate effect, and they've also confirmed that the club's home games will be played in Bloemfontein. They didn't give more details, but they say there will be a press conference that will explain everything moving forward. Meanwhile, Carabao Cup semi-finalists Middlesbrough have been drawn away to championship rivals Leeds United in the first round of the 2024-25 competition. Derby County, who are back in the championship next term, will host East Midlands rivals Chesterfield, who return to the competition for the first time in 6 years after earning promotion back to the English Football League. Sheffield United will face Wrexham in a repeat of their dramatic FA Cup fourth round tie from 2023, and the first round of matches will take place during the week commencing the 12th of August, with the final set for Wembley on on the 16th of March. Then in cricket, England won the toss and they elected to bowl first against India. There was rain delays and they haven't yet started to play, but if the semi-final ends in a tie, a super over will be played to determine the winner. And still talking about cricket issues, the DP World Wanderers Stadium will host a fan park on Saturday for the T20 World Cup final, all for free. As we know, the Proteas are in the final and we are yet to find out who else is going to join them between England and India. And here is the Chief Executive of DP World Wanderers, John O'Leaf Wright.
No, Tim, they can arrive at the stadium. Gates open at 3:30. We've decided with Cricket South Africa that there'll be no charge. And obviously we're going to jam-pack it with a fan-centric fun day out for families and friends to come and watch the Proteas take on whoever wins this afternoon between India and England. And obviously, as you know, at the DP World Wanderers, it's always a family occasion, and there'll be DJs, jumping castles, face painters, and a real family day out where we all get to celebrate being proudly South African and get to hopefully edge our Proteas over the line as they beat one of these, either India or England, in the final.
Meanwhile, Cricket South Africa has confirmed the SA Under-19 Women's T20 series against Namibia and the Eastern Storm as they prepare for the second edition of the ICC Under-19 Women's T20 Cricket World Cup in Malaysia and Thailand in early 2025. The SA Under-19 women will take on the two senior sides from the 1st to the 6th of July, with all matches held at Wilmore Park in Benoni. This tour will feature 10 T20 matches, with South Africa playing 7 games against their provincial counterparts and the touring Namibian national team. In rugby, the Bulls have announced Piwe Nomlomo as head coach of the Pretoria outfit of the 2024 Currie Cup campaign. Piwe joined the Bulls in August 2023 as an assistant coach with a focus on the skills hub alongside Kennedy Tsimba. Piwe will work alongside Werner Kruger, Jean Teet and Tsimba. With that said, it is a wrap from my side.
So let me ask you this. So let's get clarity. Morocco Swallows have been bought out by another club.
Yeah.
Right? But there's also, and they're going to play in the Free State, and the name's changed.
Yes.
So Morocco Swallows does not exist any longer.
Basically, yeah.
Sure. You know, what do you think of it?
It's very sad. It reminds me of when Wits was no more.
I know.
So it's a very sad, bittersweet moment, because obviously the football fans in the Free State will definitely be happy because they've been looking forward for football from that side. But it's quite unfortunate that a big club like Morocco Swallows, which has a great, rich history, unfortunately couldn't survive and had to be
I don't know about the buying of clubs. I mean, so the club that I used to support when I was a lightie was the old Dynamos that came out of Backer Street here in Fordsburg or Joburg, and they were famous for the fact that they were founded by the Bahad brothers, all the political Bahad brothers, and they were therefore named after like Dynamos and Dinamo from Eastern Europe, right? But when they got sold, finally, they played in the Federation, then the NPSL and the PSL. When they got sold to, I think, Dynamos in Toyando, the connection's gone. Right, and this doesn't happen a lot in other countries where, yes, clubs do fold, but they're not allowed. I don't think they're allowed to have a name change. I'm not too sure. That means the identity of the club is to be retained, because the club and its culture and the football tribe, if I can call it that follows the club is a unique thing that you don't want to lose. So now you get like, they're talking about Free State. Yeah. The one club I never supported, but I love the way they look, is Bloom Celtic, right? And that green and white stripes, and when that sort of disappeared, they end their complete heritage. It's really sad.
It is very sad.
I don't like the name change part.
Unfortunately, it comes with it. But yeah, we'll get more information, because they did say even the staff, everything that has to do with the club is definitely going to change. So we'll hear more about it as time goes on.
And I was tempted to give Panyaza Lusufi a call, but I mean, he's too busy now holding on to his seat as the Premier of Gauteng. Yeah. Did you say your goodbyes? Not yet. We'll talk again tomorrow.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound in Sandton is queuing towards Marlborough Drive. The N1 northbound in Sunninghill has a crash after Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown Interchange towards Boysons. Jan Smuts Avenue in Hyde Park is slow moving at 6th Road. In Midrand, Olifantsfontein Road westbound has a crash near Lever Road, and the N1 northbound is queuing towards Samrand Road exit. In KZN, on the N2, there's roadworks with stop-go controls in place at Makuza, so you're asked to expect delays. The N3 eastbound has a stationary truck after Ashburton exit. The N3 both ways has roadworks with traffic restrictions in that Cliffdale area, and the N3 eastbound has a stationary truck reported at Cliffdale. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is slow moving at Voortrekker Road. Helen Suzman Boulevard inbound is queuing towards Batencraft Street, and Batencraft outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. Then Main Road northbound is queuing in that central Muizenberg area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The world's best cooking show is coming to S3. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, Noma Upumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Starts Saturday 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Are you ready to take your brand to a whole new level? Have you ever thought about how big companies use strong PR to get more people to know about their brands? The Allure Group presents the inaugural Building a Brand Through PR Masterclass. Join us on Wednesday, July 3rd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the DP World Wonders Stadium in Johannesburg. Learn from 12 industry experts as they share their case studies and personal testimonies that will transform your approach to brand building. Visit www.prmasterclass.co.za to get your tickets. Only 650 rands for an in-person experience, or join us virtually for just 350 rands. Don't miss this chance to master the art of PR and take your brand to the next level. Building a brand through PR Masterclass, powered by Independent Media.
Lindelani ladies want to change gears against raining temps to relocate from the danger zone. However, Banyana Style say they will conquer the game and grab the vital 3 points. Enter Queen meets Clonco. This is the Hollywood Men's Super League. Catch the Mzansi Queens on the pitch. Lindelani Ladies FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC on Sunday 30 June at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sports on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sports. For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the MoneyWeb market update with Jimmy. Jimmy, what are you going to talk about? The falling rand, I gather.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to me, and good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, the falling rand. Anyone that thought that the rand wasn't a politically exposed currency is finding out firsthand exactly what that term means. There was a point we were below 18 rand. Now we're closer to 1850, and it doesn't look like it's been anything other than coalition talks and government of national unity talks. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at what's been happening on markets throughout the day. There's a couple of things that have come out. Some JSE listed companies have given us some updates. We got an APSA update after market close yesterday that affected markets today. We're looking at the fact that AO Technologies has agreed to repay the PIC. That's been a long-standing story, so we're going to dig into those from a markets perspective, but we're also going to look at some other conversations. We're going to be looking at the latest merger to create the National Financial Ombud. It's the merger of several several smaller ombud bodies that have now come together to create one super ombud body, and we're going to understand why they've done that and what it means for you and I as consumers when we need to approach the ombud. Then we've got a conversation with Discovery, continuing the conversation we had yesterday around the two-pot system. We're going to pick up on some of the points we couldn't get to yesterday because of time, and we're just going to wrap that up with the guys at Discovery. They've created a new platform for every South African to be able to access, and then we've got a conversation with Investec around their vodcast series. They've got a very interesting series that they're running at the moment. We're going to dip into that series and just see what it's about and try and make sense of that. And then we've also got a conversation as part of our SME Thursdays. Very, very interesting SME if you're looking to renovate your home, if you're looking to buy some really nice furniture. They deal in or they manufacture high-end furniture. They're a youth-owned business. They tick a lot of the boxes, so you're supporting a local business and you're supporting a business that builds high quality furniture pieces, so we're going to be speaking to them and try and understand how their business is run and how you can get your next great couch or bed. But before we get to that, as we've said, the markets have been moving from the back of the news that we've been getting out in little drips and drabs or the speculation around what's happening with this government of national unity of ours, and it doesn't look like it's been a very good day, especially if we're looking at the rand. But Henko Kriya joins me now. He always keeps an eye on the markets for us, and he joins us now to do a quick summary of what's been moving the markets. Good evening, Henko. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. The rand shedding ground, financial stocks losing ground, oil price getting more expensive. What's to be happy about today?
Jimmy, I'm not too sure what there is to be happy about because it was a Tara day, it was a red day, and just good evening to you, Jimmy, and to Ashraf and to me, and good evening to all of our listeners. Really nothing to be happy about today because the JSE lost 0.4% and it finished at a lower level of 78,969 points. Not nice to see that we're now trading below 79,000 points. Then the industrial index turned negative the whole day long, but then here in the 11th hour, right at the end, it decided to close unchanged. So the industrial level did not move at the end of the day. The financial index lost quite a bit. The financial index finished 1.9, almost 2% weaker at the end of the day. But the resources index was the one index which tried its best to make up for all of these other losses, and the resources index gaining 1.5% today. Some of the reasons as to why this financial index took such a big dip and a big dive was FirstRand, and that's of course one of the 10 largest companies on the JSE. FirstRand finished 2% weaker today. The rest of the 10 largest companies didn't move much, but let's move over to some of the companies that gave better performances today. Not amongst the top 10, but there were Harmony, Mondi, and Montauk. They each finished 5% stronger at the end of the day. Alphaman, the Life Healthcare Group, and Goldfields, they each gained 4%. And there was also Omnia, Anglo Gold, Aspen, and Exaro, each finishing 3% stronger. Then back to the bad news on the negative side of things. You mentioned them, ABSA. They plummeted and fell 9% at the end of the day, almost finishing 10% weaker. Then RCL took a bit of a dip again today, similar to like it did yesterday, and RCL finishing 7.5% weaker today. We Buy Cars, Amplats, Karoo, and Discovery, they each lost 2.5%. Then on the commodities market, the price of gold is sitting at $2,330 an ounce. Silver is $29.10. Platinum is trading at $990 and palladium at $930 an ounce. The oil price is $85.20 a barrel. Then if we move over to the exchange rate, then yes, not nice to see, but now sitting at 18 Rand 48 to the US dollar, 23 Rand 37 to the pound, 19 Rand 79 to the euro, and 12 Rand 30 to the Australian dollar. And the Bitcoin is trading at $61,500, but that is still 1,150,000 Rand. And Jimmy, maybe I can finish off with the markets overseas because it's now late enough in the afternoon and the US markets well into trading today. At the moment, the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, and the S&P 500 in the green and trading about 0.1% stronger, but European stocks, they finished quite mixed, with the FTSE 100 losing 0.3% today, the CAC 40 in France finishing 0.7% weaker, but the DAX in Germany finished the day 0.3% stronger. And Jimmy, with that, back to you.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. Lots of movements to discuss, lots to look into, and we'll dip into all of these a little later on. But for now, Ashraf, back to you and the team. We'll be back a little later.
Thank you, Jimmy. Yeah, you've got a busy show, so looking forward to that coming up from 6. Right. Okay, let's get some calls. I think we can take calls now. In fact, we've got Mike in Newlands. Hi, Mike.
Yeah, well, Ashraf, yes, thanks very much. I want to just pick up on the one point you made there when you were talking about the Rand and the collapse, or the continued collapse of the Rand as the ANC plays games with our economy. Is you said the best, obviously these parties want the best, the DA wants the best deal for them, and the ANC wants the best deal for themselves. I just want to correct you on that. The ANC definitely want the best deal for themselves. The previous President Zuma said the ANC comes first and the country comes second, and our current president said he'd rather be a weak president than split the ANC. So the country is not first, and the DA has proved the fact that it puts its province first before its people, and that's reflected in the fact that the DA has run the best province in the country. Now,
no, but Mike, you see, but Mike, the point is what you don't know, and I'm not talking about the governance part. What we don't know in the negotiations that are taking place, we see something on letter form, but they think privately that you don't know and I don't know. So you can't say with absolute authority that you know they want this and the ANC wants something different. We don't know that.
And Ashraf, listen, dealing with the ANC is like dealing with a bag of snakes. This morning they offered the trade and industry portfolio, then they withdraw it, and then they send a letter telling you, the bad guy, that you're the bad guy because they've reneged on their word. But the point I want to make is, Ashraf, is this. The ANC can brag about absolutely none of their portfolios. I can't think of one that is a success. I can't think of one SOE that is not bankrupt or corrupt. There's nothing the ANC can say, you know what, we deserve this portfolio. There is nothing. The ANC have no right to drag this country further down, to increase the cost of our petrol, increase unemployment, which is going to be a result of this. As they play against trying to keep portfolios, they haven't managed to prove one that they can use. Not one of their portfolios that they ever managed successfully.
Okay.
And in conclusion, Ashraf, just in conclusion, I read with utter disgust and sadness now that I see the Eastern Cape is now the second province to the Free State to have more unemployed people than employed people. We cannot continue with this kind of nonsense.
Okay.
The ANC has got to put the country.
All right, Mike, point taken there. And let me say this without even suggesting that I would be supportive or critical of the DA, because we're talking of the ANC here. I think the reality of what you're saying is true. That is, the reason the ANC, by and large, have dropped to 40% is a reflection from many people who have seen what has happened over many years, and they're not happy with that. And that is reflected in what we have come up with now, right? Okay, let's get to, I think it's Mahali's, right? Lerotoli on the line. Hi.
Hello, Ashraf, how are you?
Yeah, good talking to you, man. And what's your point?
Yeah, my point is one for ANC being non-racial organization, doing losing in that extent. Yeah, I think they lost it because ANC, they used to be a ruling party, but when these things, people being racist, there's no action from ANC. You see now, Ashraf, Julius Malema, he always been racist to the white people and to the colored people. There's no action. My point is, where is the action for ANC when black people are racist? And you see, each and every time when the Springbok is arriving from World Cup, white players are always being insulted by Julius Malema. No action from ANC. Ashraf, did you know Banyana coach Desiree Ellis?
Mm-hmm.
She was being discriminated by former player like Pressure Modisa, being racist on her say she don't bring a black player, she cannot.
Well, I mean, okay, I hear you. I'm going to move on only because we're out of time, but I get the gist of what you're saying. And again, you know, some things are allegations, some could be seen by others as fact. But I hear what you're saying. There's been ambiguity and maybe sometimes double standards as well in terms of how we dish out the morality with regard to race and racism. But thanks for that call, Lerotoli. Certainly got me thinking, and I'm sure you got the nation thinking with that call. Right, we're gonna talk about a development, certainly a position that the Institute for Security Studies has with regards to the funding of what is called terror organizations by the Islamic State, and the funding coming from South Africa. We'll talk about that next.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so what does that mean? You know, the South Africa at risk or significant risk of terror financing by Islamic State. All sort of all words in that statement matters. The Institute for Security Studies has a position, and they believe that South African authorities must monitor what is called the terror financing activities of the Islamic State within South Africa's borders, and what that really means. We'll find out. William Else is with me from the Institute for Security Studies. William, you're live with the National Pulse. Hi.
Good afternoon to you.
Thank you. So, what do you mean, and how do you know this?
Okay, first of all, yesterday the Financial Intelligence Center actually published the National Risk Assessment report of the FATF, the Financial Action Group, that actually grey-listed South Africa almost 2 years ago. There is a task team that actually look at countries, and then they are looking at the vulnerabilities for terror funding and providing terror funding, but also money laundering and how resilient these countries are in countering that. So if a country is found to be wanting, they are being grey-listed. So currently there are 12 countries in Africa that are grey-listed, and South Africa is one of them.
Okay, so help us understand this. When we talk about Islamic State, are we talking about an actual state or a state called Islam? And I know that's not true, but just to clarify so we understand it.
Okay, now what they are mentioning there, or what they're referring to, is the Islamic State, or ISIS. That is the terror group that has been designated by the United Nations as a terror group. They operated mainly in Syria, but we see of late that they are really active in Africa. That is in Sahel, in Somalia, as well as in DRC, and in our neighboring country, Mozambique.
Okay, so you're saying that whatever they do, are you saying that there's funding for or to them coming from South Africa, or they're channeling their monies into this country? I mean, help us understand that.
Okay, yeah, both ways. In the first place, South Africa, being a financial hub of Africa, and especially Southern Africa, is very lucrative for these groups to channel their money from, and to disseminate the money from South Africa towards funding these groups, because of our financial system, because of some areas where we are not very transparent in our financial systems, and also we got other weaknesses especially in our informal economy that is not monitored that well, and these groups are exploiting that in order to then channel these funding towards these groups. But it's not only the ISIS that have been mentioned in the assessment, the national risk assessment that was done. It's also right-wing organizations in South Africa that are receiving funds that they highlighted.
Which organizations are they?
They only mentioned right-wing organizations. We know that in recent times in Middelburg there was the Crusader group, where we had a successful conviction of people there, but in the past there has been some groups in South Africa.
So wait, are you saying ISIS are funding a right-wing organization?
No.
Who's funding them?
Terror funding within South Africa is being channeled towards ISIS, or is being channeled towards the right-wing groups, according to the report.
Okay. What then is your deduction going forward?
Okay, going forward, well, as I mentioned, South Africa is being grey-listed. What South Africa has done in the last, say 16 or 18 months, we amended our Paktatara Act, that is our Counter-Terrorism Act, to strengthen it in order to prosecute terrorism and acts of terrorism, where it also included now property, or the movement of property, and that include funding for terror, money for terror funding. And then also we amended our FIC Act, and that is our Financial Intelligence Act, and we strengthened our Financial Intelligence Center with a bigger budget and more assets in order to fortify them to do what they're supposed to do, and that is to police the South African economy against money laundering as well as terror funding.
Okay, let's leave it at that. I'm sure we may have other opinions on that, and we'll certainly develop that story as and when that itself develops. William Els from the Institute for Security Studies. What we can do now is maybe time for one or two calls. Particularly, I think I'm interested in the reducing the, can I call it ANC-DA alliance? I think I can, because really without the two of them, then the shape of the government of national unity as we know it will not be what it is, right? Here's a comment on the GNU.
Afternoon, Ashraf. It's McIntyre. Ashraf, it's laughable, this whole GNU circus. It only means one thing, this whole GNU. The DA did everything in its power to give us the ANC. I mean, it's the ANC, it's the DA that actually pushed the ANC back into power. We would not have ANC. The people of South Africa, we unanimously voted the ANC out. The ANC has always been in power. We voted them out of power because we don't want them anymore. Then the DA, what it does, because it wants also a piece of the pie. They also want to be in cabinet. They give all their votes to the ANC, contrary to what they were preaching prior to the elections. This is what you find for lying to voters.
Okay. Do I need to add to that? I don't know. I'm confused. Here's another.
Good afternoon, SAFM. Yeah, you know what? I'm really concerned the way DA they are doing things. DA, they want the ANC to hear from them, whereas at the end of the day, this is a government of national unity. We need to be united. We need to unite as a country, and the DA can't come and make demands. So really it's not supposed to be, because it means that the DA wants to control the ANC, wants to control everyone. They must not do that, because at the end of the day, this is a joint government. Everyone must have a say, and DA can come and bully the ANC and bully everyone. Thank you, SAFM.
And some may say the ANC are bullying the DA after agreeing on certain things. We don't really know. Let's take one last caller. Owen and George, if you can be quick, you've got 30 seconds. Go ahead. Hi.
Sorry, I'll be quick here. I just want to make a comment. Is there a difference between government of national unity and power sharing? Power sharing is more of a proportional representation, whereas government of national unity is where the president chooses individuals who he wants in his cabinet, not giving a proportion to a certain political party.
I mean, I hear you. You know, this whole thing is open to so much debate and in different interpretation. I've heard Mbazima Shalowa even say that it doesn't really matter which one it is. It's like we have a sense of how they work and how the public perceives what they do and they do not do. So when I got that, we're not going to get answers. We probably need a bigger answer in terms of what have they finally agreed upon, if anything, right? That's it for the show, right? We'll do it again tomorrow, so feel free to connect with me, engage SFM Radio on the X or Twitter platform, as well as on SAE on the Facebook page. Do follow me on again X and Facebook, Ashraf Garda, as well as the Instagram and TikTok too, by the way. We post the That's My Point feature as well there. But love the fact that you engage with us. We can't always take every single call. My apologies for that, but I can tell you to the team, thanks to the entire team that puts it all together, from Phineas to Tumi to Tebogo, Vusani, Temba as well. And then the team that reads the news. We have Madupi early on, as well as Greg Coase. And of course, Greg is still on duty. He takes charge. It's 6 o'clock. It's time for the news.
Thank you, Ashraf. Enjoy the rest of your evening. In this news update, survivors of George building collapse left destitute, and Ramaphosa lashes out at the DA. Good evening. Survivors of the collapsed building tragedy in George in the Western Cape say their lives have gotten worse since the incident, which took